Merci beaucoup de nous avoir rejoints ce soir.
So thank you for joining us tonight. Promise.
Je suis très heureuse
I
qu'on
am
puisse
very
faire
happy
ce webinaire,
to
qu'on prépare
uh, share
depuis,
this
enfin, depuis
webinar with
11 mois de
you,
projet qu'on a développé à l'Université
to
Paris
share with you the 11
Ce
months
projet, comme
of
vous le
that we
savez, le
spent
titre, donc
on
on
this
l'appelle
project. As you know,
CSSC, de
we
son
call it
acronyme en anglais
CSST
Corporate
from
Security
the
Strategies
English
in Support of Culture.
acronym, Corporate
Nous avons
Strategies, Sustainable
J'essaie de
Strategies
me
in Support of
présenter.
Culture.
Je
And so
suis
I will start
Liliane
by introducing
Riquieri
myself.
Hanani. J'essaie de ne pas
My
parler
name is
avec
Liliane Riqueri
l'accent
Hanania.
français. Comme ça, voilà,
Uh,
je
I
respecte
try
mes
not to
origines.
say it with
Je
a French
suis
accent in
avocate
order to
litigatrice,
respect,
chercheur,
out of
enseignante
respect for my
à
origins.
Paris
I'm
Cité.
a lawyer and also a
Je travaille
professor
sur ces
at
questions de
Université
diversité culturelle
Paris
depuis
Cité,
plus
and
de
I
20
work
ans
on
maintenant,
this
depuis 2002. Et
cultural
ce projet, il a comme
questions since
origine,
for the
il est
last
né en
10
fait
years. And
d'une
this project
frustration
started
que
from my
j'avais
frustration
quand je voyais en tant
when
qu'avocate et
that I could
également
what was
enseignante,
witnessing as a
voir
lawyer and
les
as a
normes, les
professor
standards,
when
les
I saw that
législations
the
de
norm, the
réglementation
legislations,
nationales ou
regulations,
internationales qui
be
traitaient
they national, international,
du
that
reporting
that talked
extra-financier des
about
entreprises, donc du
that
secteur privé.
really
Aujourd'hui, on
needed
parle plutôt de
non
reporting de
didn't include
durabilité, qui est
non-financial reporting.
finalement
Nowadays we talk more
l'étendue
about
en fait du standard quand
sustainability
on
reporting.
examine
And when
des
we
obligations de
read
reporting.
those
Il y a très peu de
norms,
choses qui touchent
these
à la diversité
there's
culturelle.
really
Alors que
very
du
little
côté
that
de
touches upon
l'UNESCO, parce que justement moi je
um,
travaille sur ces questions de diversité culturelle
cultural
du point de vue du droit
diversity.
international,
And
tant du
when we
droit
look at what's
international de la
happening
culture,
At
donc c'est-à-dire
UNESCO,
toutes les
I work
conventions UNESCO
uh,
qui portent sur la
with all
culture,
these
que du droit
conventions
international
about
économique.
culture, as
Du côté
well
de
as in
l'UNESCO, les
international
professionnels du
law.
secteur
On the
culturel,
side
il
of
y a une
UNESCO
reconnaissance
and
de
the
plus en plus grande
professionals in the cultural
d'un
sector, there's
pilier
a
culturel pour le
recognition
développement
durable, that
donc
this
une dimension
cultural pillar
culturelle très
is
forte qui
really
n'est pas
important
encore
in
reconnue comme elle ne le doit
sustainability, which
et donc,
hasn't yet
nous
been
avons
recognized
décidé
as it could be.
de lancer ce
And so we
projet
decided
avec
to
l'idée de
launch this
construire
project with this idea
une
of
plateforme qui va vous
building a
présenter un peu
platform
voilà,
that we
notre
will
méthodologie pendant ces
introduce to
11 mois
you
de
and
projet.
show
Nous avons eu le
share with
financement
you
de
our
l'université, donc je
methodology.
voudrais remercier
The
l'équipe
university financed the
valorisation
project.
de
I would
l'université
really
Paris
like to
Cité
thank
pour cette mission.
the value adding
Je
team
profite aussi
from
évidemment pour remercier
the
Antida
Paris
Nordom
Cité
qui aura
University,
l'occasion de
and
se
I also
présenter,
want to
qui est
thank
voilà, ma grande amie
Antida Nordam,
et
who will
soutien
also
depuis
be
que je suis arrivée
talking
en
soon.
France
She's
il y a
a
2
great
ans.
friend, a great
Et
support
Aude Dumont
since
aussi,
I've
qui est notre
moved to
assistante
France 22
et
years
qui
ago.
a été à
And Aude
l'œuvre de
Dumont,
beaucoup de
our assistant,
flexibilité
who has been
et
very flexible,
vraiment, elle a été prête
and she
à
was ready
changer de
to
rôle, de faire
she
différentes
was
choses
able
à
to
chaque fois
adapt to
qu'on avait
different
besoin d'elle, elle
roles
était là.
anytime we needed
Donc,
her.
merci beaucoup pour votre
So
sérieux.
thank you
Et
both
évidemment, nos
for
interprètes.
thank you
Donc, on a
for your
souci
serious, and
avec
also
Valérie
thank you
Noël qui va nous
for
rejoindre,
to our
j'espère, et
interpreters. We have
Nadine
a
Mongère qui est
problem
notre interprète
with
depuis des
one of the
années
interpreters that
sur
we haven't
tous les
been able
projets
to
qu'on
upgrade
fait
as an
ou dans
interpreter,
plus d'une
and
langue. Voilà,
Nadine
Nadine est là
Mongeard, who is
pour
interpreting
nous
right
aider.
now and who's been helping
Je
us with
passe
all our
la parole
translation
à Antida
needs. So
et
we'll
je reviendrai
now
tout à l'heure. Je continue je gère le
give the mic
PowerPoint
to
ce soir.
Antida, and
Merci
I will
Liliane, bonsoir
follow
à tous et merci d'être
the
présents pour cette
PowerPoint for you. So thank
présentation
you
de notre
all, and
projet,
thank you
ce
all
webinaire
for
de
to
clôture
be
finalement
here for this
d'un projet dédié à
conclusion
la culture. Alors moi je
webinar
suis
of
Antida
this
Nordam,
project
je suis
dedicated to
professeure de
culture.
droit public
I'm
à
Antida
l'Université Paris
Nordam.
Cité,
I'm
directrice
a
adjointe
public
du
law
Centre
professor
Maurice Auriol pour la
in
recherche en droit public,
Paris
toujours
Cité, and I'm
dans
also
cette
the
université.
director
Alors on voit, moi je suis
adjunct
plus
of the
spécialisée tout
Centre
comme
Maurice Audio,
Liliane en droit
Oriou,
international
and I'm
et
also
mon
specialized as
domaine
Lian
de
in international law,
prédilection,
but
c'est surtout sur
my
les
favorite
questions du
domain is
numérique et des
especially
nouvelles
has to
technologies.
do
Alors
with
au-delà
digital
des CV qu'on a pu
issues and new
donner en
technologies. So
quelques lignes,
beyond
ce que Liliane a oublié de
what
vous
we
dire, c'est que
gave you in a few
elle,
lines,
comme moi, je
what
crois que
she
nous
forgot to say,
incarnons la
Lilian, I
diversité
think
culturelle.
we are
Vous le
really, we
voyez à nos
embody
noms,
cultural
prénoms et noms de
diversity. You
famille,
can see
Liliane, elle
from
est
just from our
d'origine
names,
libanaise, brésilienne, aujourd'hui
Lilian has a
française,
Lebanese,
moi, je suis
Brazilian, French
d'un père
roots.
cambodgien.
My
Moi, né en
dad
France
was
et
from
marié à un Monténégrin. Ce qui veut dire
Cambodia,
qu'à nous
and I
2, nous
was born
cumulons
in
5
France. But
cultures
both of us,
différentes. Donc, nous sommes
we
la
represent five
diversité
different cultures.
culturelle
So we are
incarnée et c'est parce
embodied
que
cultural diversity,
nous
and this
sommes
is
cette
why,
diversité culturelle
because
que
we
nous
are
croyons
this cultural
évidemment en
diversity,
ce
that of
projet.
course we believe in
Mais
this project.
au-delà de cette appréhension
Beyond
subjective de
this
ce qu'est la diversité
subjective
culturelle et de
approach
ses
of what
atouts,
is cultural
évidemment,
diversity
il y a un
and its
constat qu'on peut
benefits,
faire
there's something
de
that we have
l'importance de la
observed
culture
of
et de
the
la diversité
importance of
culturelle
culture
comme des
and cultural
vecteurs
diversities
d'apaisement et de
as
transformation
agents
de
of
nos sociétés.
peace
Alors, je
and
vais rappeler tout
transformation in our
d'abord
societies. I will remind you, I will
les objectifs
recall first the
de ce
objectives
projet et
of
le
our
contexte dans
project and
lequel
the context in which
il est né.
it was
Si Liliane,
born.
tu peux mettre la slide
Liliane, if you
1, s'il te
could
plaît.
go to slide
Alors,
1.
on a tous fait le
So
constat
we
Liliane,
all,
on n'a pas la première slide là.
Liliane, we need to go to the first slide.
Ah, décidément, on la
Well, we
technologie
really
a décidé
have
de faire faux bon ce
technical
soir.
issues tonight.
Non? On t'entend plus.
We can't hear you.
Je peux faire sans l'image, hein, mais
I can do without the picture,
bon, je vais
but
commencer. Désolée. Alors, le constat, c'est évidemment que la
so what we've
culture est
observed is
un
that
élément
culture
de transformation
is
de nos
an
sociétés. On en a pu
element
s'en
of
rendre compte, par
transformation in
exemple, pendant
societies, and
la
we
crise du
saw
Covid,
that during the
le fait que
COVID
les librairies soient
crisis.
considérées comme
The fact
commerce de première
that
nécessité, le fait qu'on se raccroche à des vidéos sur les réseaux
bookstores
sociaux
were first
comme un peu des bulles
necessity,
d'air
that
pendant les périodes de
videos
confinement.
were
Donc, on a un besoin de
you
culture,
know,
notamment pendant les
connecting through
périodes de
videos was
crise.
so important.
Cette
We
culture, elle est
need
aussi
culture
utile
during crisis
pour les entreprises parce
times, and
qu'une
it's very
entreprise
useful for
diversifiée
companies
est
too,
plus
because a
représentative de nos
diverse
sociétés,
company is
plus
more
productive et
representative of our
plus en
societies,
accord
more
avec
productive, and
son
more
marché.
aligned
Et
with
donc,
its market.
l'objectif
And
du
so
projet,
the
c'est
objective of our
d'encourager
project
l'inclusion de la
was to
culture
encourage
et de
the
la
inclusion
diversité
of culture
culturelle
and
dans les
cultural
stratégies de
diversity
durabilité des
within
entreprises. Il
sustainability
s'agit
strategies of
également de
companies.
promouvoir l'impact
It was also to
social
promote the
continu et
social
significatif que procure
impact
la culture parce que c'est
that
un moteur de
that's brought
transformation
by
des
culture,
sociétés
because
dans
it's
lesquelles
really an
nous
engine
vivons.
of
Et
transformation
nous
in
avons
our
voulu
societies.
aussi, avec
And we
le
have
projet
wanted with this
CSSC, mettre
project,
en valeur le rôle des
CSSC project,
entreprises
to
privées et
valorize
des acteurs
the
culturels et
importance
créatifs
of
en tant que moteur de cette
companies
transformation
as an
et
engine of
moteur
that
du développement
transformation and
durable.
an engine of
Alors,
this
Liliane l'a
sustainable
dit en
development. So
quelques
as
mots,
Lillian said it
ce
in a few
projet a été
words, this
sélectionné en
project
mars
was selected
2023
in
par
March
l'université
2023
Paris-Cité dans
by
le cadre du
University
financement
Paris City
Stratex,
for
dans
its
sous le programme
in
d'investissement
within
d'avenir de
the
l'État
Stratex
français comme
program
projet
of
à
funding
impact et fort
for the
potentiel de
future
valorisation à valeur
as a
marchande.
project
Le
with
projet a commencé effectivement
high impact,
à la mi-juin 2023,
and
donc
the
il y
project
a un
started
peu
in
moins un an,
mid-June
et il
2023,
s'inscrit vraiment
a
dans les
bit less than
projets
a
de
year ago, and
valorisation
it's within
de notre université,
it's
particulièrement de la
shows as a
faculté
project of
Société
valorization
et
of our
Humanité.
society,
Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on entend par
especially in on our
valorisation?
side of
C'est l'idée
humanity
de
and law. What
transfert
do
de
we mean by
connaissances et
valorization? It's a
de
transfer
la
of
recherche
knowledge
dans le
and
secteur
research in the
économique
sector,
notamment, et
in
ici dans
the
le secteur
economic
culturel.
sector,
Et
and
c'est une
here in the
manière
cultural
aussi de
sector.
permettre une
And it is
meilleure
also a
intégration de
way to
l'université et de ses
enable a better
chercheurs avec
integration of the
les
university and
projets
its
de recherche qu'ils
researchers
ont dans leur
with
système
their research
socio-économique
project
et culturel.
within
C'est
their
pour ça que nous avons
socio-economic
bénéficié du
systems and
soutien
cultural system.
des
This is
services de
what we benefited
valorisation de la faculté Société et
from
Humanité
the
et
valorization services
de
of the
l'université Paris-Cité.
University
Alors,
Paris City.
la
So
présentation
the
pour
presentation
va
our
s'organiser en
presentation
plusieurs
tonight
points. Je vais vous expliquer
will follow
les
several
concepts
points.
clés qui ont
I will
permis de
explain the key
construire
concepts
notre
that
projet.
enabled us to
Liliane vous
build
expliquera
our
ensuite les
project.
différentes phases
Liliane
du
will talk
projet, la méthodologie
about the different
utilisée
phases of the project, or
pour
the
élaborer
methodology we
notre
use
questionnaire à destination des
create the
entreprises
questionnaire
afin de
uh,
mieux
that
comprendre
that was prepared for companies, so in order to understand their actions and best practices in terms of cultural diversities. Then we have some guests. We will talk to you about the installation of the platform prototype. Then I will talk to you about the evolution that we envisage for this platform and have some discussions. And we'll try to present quickly. So we'll talk about the evolution of the project, your feedback, and the platform that was set up. And so as far as key concepts, first of all, this project rests upon a legal foundation that comes from international law, which is our specialties to both of us. As you can see on this slide, three concepts, three notions that are of special interest to us, and as they are defined in international law, are not clear enough for companies or for the public at large. And this lack of clarity does not enable companies to have a strategic positioning for culture and cultural diversity. So you see here these three notions upon which our project rests, defining culture as it was defined all the way since 1982 in the conference in Mexico City about a World Conference on Cultural Policies. And this definition rests upon distinctive spiritual, material, intellectual, and emotional features. But as we can see, culture is not just art and law, but it's also the modes of life, the fundamental rights of human beings, value systems, traditions, and beliefs. So it's culture as it is understood in the widest possible sense. What we also want to add, we also want to be more precise as far as cultural diversity. The key instrument to define cultural diversity is the 2005 UNESCO Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expression. And so this cultural diversity is the manifold ways in which the cultures, as we defined, the cultures of groups and societies find their expression. And finally, the actors with which we will, the players with which we will play are the cultural industries, which means the industries which produce and distribute cultural goods and services, which are defined very widely as everything that can embody or convey cultural expressions, irrespective of the commercial value they may have. So three definitions that are extremely wide, and we will then show that this final declaration in Mexico, issued on the World Conference that I cited previously, insists on the links between culture and sustainability, sustainable development, because as we know, culture will sensitize populations to about social inclusion. You can see street art, for instance, or maybe to have cultural actions for environmental protection, so sustainability, and also culture and peace and stability of societies. Cultures makes understanding the other more easier. We may have seen programs of cultural development in post-conflict situation in Ukraine, for instance, or even when there is still an armed conflict, to promote culture as a vector of pacification, of resiliency of the populations that are being affected or that were affected by the conflict. And also the importance as culture as a global public good, beyond the possible appropriation of other goods of the states or private players, the importance of culture as a global public good to encourage a development that is centered on the humanity. And so on the base of these legal foundations, we will go to the next slide will show, and Liliane will talk some more about her methodology. As she told you, she's a mediator. So based on her mediation techniques, she was able to lead some interviews with players in the project, companies, public actors, public players in the cultural world. And these different interviews and mediation techniques that she will talk some more about later were enabled us to identify the practices and the needs of each one of these players. And that methodology showed the need for clarification of cultural diversity, because we see that some companies will tend to invest in what we think internal diversity, and other more on external diversity. So we felt it was necessary to differentiate the investment, the financial investment, according to these different aspects. So the diversity within the company, as it is represented among its employees, we have it. We see that, for example, in the DEI departments, in the different geographical groups, the national of ethnic origin groups, and also we see it on the other side, the external cultural diversity, more with social economical aspect, to see the impact of the company on its society. And in that case, this is more the creative industries that are that are interested in that, on that side. And we see a link within these two, the internal and external cultural diversity, which is it seemed very important to create a global vision of corporate cultural diversity. The idea is that our project wants to make this vision more strategic, more efficient, more effective, and to enhance the value of cultural and creative industries. And that's the objective of our project. And so a few examples of different practices as far as internal diversity. As you can see here on the side, it could be the possibility to invest in learning local or foreign languages within the company. The idea of to reduce bias regarding the origin of candidates when recruiting or evaluating employees. The applying DEI standards and norms, the idea of maybe promoting internal mechanisms for intercultural communication, and also to promote intercultural understanding within the company, and also the need to measure and encourage inclusion and diversity amongst employees. So that's the internal diversity. As far as external cultural diversity of a company, to give you a few examples, usually we think about the financial aspects to contribute to international or national funds for cultures, as for UNESCO, or to support financially cultural events, NGOs that work for cultures. And of course, that can be financial investment, but there are different non-financial actions that can actually be regarded as external cultural diversity. For instance, the company can lend its walls for its spaces for cultural events, its spaces and amphitheaters for rehearsal or presentations to artists, and share what it can do the best with artists, with cultural institutions. And so doesn't have to be just financial, and that's the whole difficulty, to evaluate the internal, the external, the financial, the non-financial, that are all working in favor of culture and cultural diversity. And I will now give the mic back to Lillian to explain all the different phases of the project and the methodology.
T'es mute, Liliane.
Ton micro,
Hein?
Lillian.
Ouais, décidément.
You're,
Donc,
right. You were
enfin, moi,
muted,
je vais vous
Lillian.
expliquer un peu
Wow.
ce que nous avons fait
So I will
effectivement au
explain a
long
little
de ces
bit
11
what we
mois de
did
projet.
during these
Nous avons eu
11
une
months of
première
the
phase
project.
entre
Our
juin et
first
décembre
phase between
2023. Nous
June and
avons déjà
December
parlé un peu de ce que
2023,
nous avions
we
prévu
talked a little bit about what
dans ce
we
projet, qui
had
était le développement d'une
planned,
plateforme
which was
en ligne
the development of an
avec des
online
questionnaires que les
platform with a
entreprises
questionnaire that
auxquelles les entreprises
companies
ont accès pour soumettre des
that
informations
companies
pour évaluer.
can
Donc,
reply
nous avons eu la chance, en fait, en
to
commençant
give
notre projet,
to
en
share
discutant
data.
avec
And so we started this
la graduate
project
school
when
d'intelligence
talking with a graduate
artificielle
school
et
for
de
artificial
sciences
intelligence
évaluées à
of
UPCT.
data science
On nous
in
a proposé, en fait,
UPCT,
de profiter
Université Paris-Cité, and they
des
offered
étudiants, enfin,
to
du temps et
use
des projets que les étudiants des licences 3
our
étaient censés faire
their
chaque année,
students
des projets
in
concrets.
in
Et
their
on nous a
licence
proposé de soumettre
program,
notre projet à des
and
étudiants qui pourraient
they
nous aider à
suggested
développer un
we
prototype de plateforme.
offer our
Et il fallait que ça
project to
soit
some
fait à
students
partir de janvier. Il fallait qu'en janvier, ils
that
puissent
could
avoir
develop
le
a
cahier des
platform
charges
prototype
pour la
since
plateforme. Donc, nous avons
January.
concentré nos activités de
Starting in
recherche,
January. So we
donc
focused
collecte de
our research
données,
activity
analyse
like
des
data
données collectées.
collection,
Donc, nous avons commencé
data
évidemment via une recherche
analysis. We started,
documentaire.
of
Nous
course,
avons
by
étudié les
documental
rapports
research.
publics d'entreprises,
We studied the
des
public
sites de
reports
fondations
of
d'entreprises
the
qui,
companies, the
qui nous donnaient
foundation,
déjà une
corporate
idée des types
foundation
d'initiatives qui
of the
s'appellent
companies,
en France, à
to give
l'étranger.
us an
Enfin, bref,
idea
il
of
s'agit
the
de certains
existing
pays. Nous avons
initiatives in
essayé
France and
ici
abroad.
sélectionner
We
des
also
entreprises qui
tried to
étaient assez
select
diverses,
companies
en
that
fait,
were
en taille, en
very
secteur,
diverse in size,
selon le type aussi
sector,
d'appel aux
depending
fondations
also
d'entreprises. Elles étaient
for corporate
intégrées à
foundations
l'entreprise, alors
that
que
were
parfois, ça peut
that were
complètement
part of the
indépendant.
company,
Donc, en
and
fait, nous avons
sometimes it's
essayé
completely
de
independent. So
choisir
we
des
try to
entreprises
pick
qui nous donnaient en fait
companies
une
that would give
représentativité,
us
même si ça reste des
some
échantillons.
representativity, even if it was
Comme
still a sample, right?
disait Antida,
And
en
as
utilisant
Antida
des
was
techniques de
saying, by
questionnement de
using
la médiation, ce qu'on appelle la médiation de projet,
mediation technique,
on a fait des entretiens avec un
we
échantillon
conducted
d'entreprises, de
interviews with a
représentants du
sample of
secteur
companies
culturel et de
representing the
municipalités.
cultural
Et je remercie
sector
d'ailleurs,
and
je rate pas
municipalities. So I
l'opportunité
really want to
de les
thank here
remercier pour leur temps, pour
them
leur
for their
disponibilité.
time and
Et à partir de
their
ces
availability.
entretiens et de
And
la recherche
based on these
complémentaire, nous avons
interviews
identifié un
and
certain nombre
the
d'initiatives. Nous avons
data
fait un
analysis,
inventaire
we
d'initiatives avec
drew up
l'idée
an
de
inventory
pouvoir
of initiatives
mesurer
with the idea
évidemment
of
leur
being able to
importance en
measure
croisant les
their
informations qu'on avait
impact
des besoins
by
des
crossing
entreprises, des entreprises
the
privées déjà
data,
qui étaient
the needs
faciles
that the
pour les
companies
entreprises
shared,
et ce
what
que le
was
secteur
easy for
culturel nous
them,
disait en
and
fait
what the
être le
cultural
plus
sector,
important
with
pour
what the
eux
cultural
en
sector
termes
was telling us, but what
besoins.
was the most important
Donc,
for them as
certaines
far as
initiatives vont être
needs are
notées, vont
concerned.
être
So,
mieux
so
notées
some
tout simplement
initiatives
parce qu'elles
are
répondent
of
mieux
better
ou en tout cas
grades, are
par
higher
rapport à ce
grades
que
because
voilà, ça peut évoluer en fait
they
dans
respond to
les
a
années à venir
higher
évidemment.
need
Mais
of
au jour
the cultural
d'aujourd'hui, voilà,
sector.
c'était
But it could
les
change. But
initiatives qui ont été
right
considérées
now,
comme les
today,
plus
these are the
importantes ayant les
initiatives
plus d'impact
that are the
pour le
most
secteur culturel.
impactful
Donc, nous
for
avons
cultural
développé une
sectors.
grille de notation et un ensemble
So we
de
developed
classements
um,
selon différentes catégories
a ranking
permettant aux entreprises
system, a rating
justement de
grid,
pouvoir se
and
comparer
ranking
non seulement
categories, so
entre
companies
autres
could
entreprises du même
compare
secteur, de la même taille,
themselves
mais
not only
aussi
to companies from the same
suivre leur
sector, but
performance
also to follow
au mieux.
their
C'est le but en fait
performance
de cette plateforme, c'est qu'à
uh,
l'avenir, avec
in
les
the
fonctionnalités
with
que nous allons
and
développer,
the
cela puisse se faire
evolution
tout le
of
temps, que les
their
entreprises puissent du coup
performance,
voir de
so
quelle manière elles sont en
that
train
they can see how they're
d'améliorer, de
evolving
perfectionner leurs
and
initiatives et leur
perfecting
performance dans ce
their
domaine.
initiatives
Donc,
and
nous
their
avons finalisé le
performance in
cahier
that
des
domain.
charges pour ce prototype de
So
plateforme
we
pour avoir
elaborated the technical
l'opportunité
specifications for the
travailler
platform,
avec les
so we
étudiants
would be able to work with the
d'informatique.
students, with the
Entre
IT
janvier et
students,
mai, du coup, ce
between
projet s'est
January
fini
and
le
May.
31 mai.
This
Nous avons consacré notre temps
the
à ce
project will
travail
end
avec
on
les
May
étudiants pour
31st.
construire le
So
prototype, pour tester
this is the
plateforme,
time we
pour tester
dedicated
cette
to
plateforme
working with
qu'ils
the
vont vous
students
montrer un petit
to
peu.
develop and test
Tester
the
les
platform
classements,
prototype. They will
tester
talk to you about
l'innovation
it, to test
avec
the
les
rating
données
grids,
qu'on a soumises pour ces
the
tests.
grades, the
Et
ranking,
ensuite aussi tester
and
les
also
modèles de
to
rapport
test
qu'on pouvait
the
produire par
different
cette plateforme. Donc,
report
pour
models
l'instant,
that the
ça reste un
platform could
prototype, ça
produce.
reste
So right now it is is still a
relativement
prototype.
simple en termes de classement,
It's quite
mais
simple as
nous
far
allons
as
montrer en fait que nous avons comme
ranking,
objectif
but we would like
pour
to show
après, en
you
fait, comme
what
format
our
de
objectives
rapport,
are for the future
format
and what kind of
niveau de
formal
service, en fait,
reports
différents
we
niveaux
would
de
like
service
to be
qu'on
able to
pourra
produce
offrir
thanks to the
à partir de cette
platform
plateforme en termes d'analyse des données qui
in
sont
terms of data analysis.
soumises. Nous avons déjà identifié
Based, based on the
prestataires de services
data
techniques. Donc, nous
given
avons
by the companies.
un
We're
partenaire
already in
déjà
touch
en
with
technologie de
some
l'information qui va
technical
nous accompagner pour
partners,
développer les autres
one in
fonctionnalités de
IT,
cette
to help
plateforme.
us develop the
Évidemment,
next
nous sommes
functionalities
en
of the
pleine
platform.
recherche de
We
financement
are
additionnel.
looking for
Et évidemment, entre
additional
janvier et mai, nous avons
funds, and
préparé
between
notre
January
webinaire
and
pour
May,
pouvoir vous
we
accueillir aujourd'hui.
prepared this webinar to welcome you today.
Cette diapo vous montre les 4
This
entreprises
slide
pilotes.
shows
Ce sont
you
les
the
entreprises qui
4
ont accepté
pilot
de nous accompagner
companies
depuis le début.
that accepted
Coface,
to
Michelin,
test
IEX et
the
la Maison
prototype
Dupuis,
with us,
qui ont
Coface,
accepté qu'on
Michelin,
puisse les
IEX,
citer
and
en
La
tant
Maison
qu'entreprise
Dupuis
pilote et
that accepted to be tested
donné
as
leur
pilot
feedback,
companies
leur
and who
retour en
gave
fait sur
their feedback
au long du
about
projet, sur les
all
différentes
along the
étapes,
project, about the different steps
les différents documents qu'on produisait.
and the different documents that we produced
Le
and prepared.
questionnaire, donc comme je vous
The
ai
questionnaire,
j'ai mentionné avant, nous avons fait donc
as I
ce
mentioned
croisement de
before,
données
we
collectées du côté
crisscross the data we collected.
Liliane va sortir et va se reconnecter et je vais
Liliane
prendre
will leave and
la
reconnect,
relève
and
dès que
meanwhile I
donc
will
là,
cover for her. So here,
la méthodologie en fait
the methodology
pour noter les
that we
entreprises
used for
a été
grading
fondée sur la
and
collecte de
ranking
données qui
companies
a
was
permis
based on the
à
data
partir
collection
notamment de différents rapports des entreprises, des
taken from
fondations
different company
et surtout
reports,
des
corporate
interviews
foundations,
avec
and
notre échantillon
especially of
d'entreprises,
the
de
interviews we
pouvoir
had
à
with
la fois
the
identifier les données
sample companies.
pertinentes et
We were
collecter
able to identify
les données
the relevant
qui
data
étaient utiles.
and
Et en
the
plus, là,
useful
on
data,
est
and of
plus une
course,
PowerPoint. C'est un festival
no
ce
more
soir.
PowerPoint,
Alors,
since it's a
les aléas
festival
du
of
direct.
error tonight. It's what happens when you work live.
Vous allez voir comme on s'adapte.
We'll see how power of adaptation here.
Et voilà. Alors. Pardon. Donc voilà. Et Liliane a pu aussi
Liliane was
interviewer un
also
certain
able
nombre
to interview
d'acteurs publics,
a
particulièrement
number
des
of
municipalités qui étaient qu'on avait
public
pu
actors,
identifier sur
notably the municipalities
leur
that we
implication
identified
dans
from
les questions culturelles.
that were
Donc,
really
à partir de là,
involved
elle a
in
pu
cultural
identifier en fait, les
in the cultural area.
besoins,
So
les
she was able
pratiques
to identify the
de
various
nos parties
needs and
prenantes
practices
et
of our
collecter,
players,
identifier
and to
les
collect
données qui
and
étaient
identify
pertinentes pour
the data
continuer à
that were
faire
relevant to keep on
pour élaborer notre questionnaire.
elaborating our questionnaire.
Donc, l'utilisation du
So
questionnaire,
the use
elle
of the
va se
questionnaire
faire de différentes manières.
is done in
Les
various
compagnies, enfin
ways.
les entreprises,
Companies
vont pouvoir soumettre leurs
will be
données
able
chaque année à
to
travers la plateforme CSSC.
input their
Ce qui va
data
permettre
each
aussi
year through
d'avoir
the
un certain,
CSSC
de
platform,
produire, et
which
ça, les
also
étudiants
will
vont vous le
produce,
montrer tout à
and
l'heure,
the students will show
de
you
produire
in a minute, it will
un
that
classement
enable to rank
des entreprises à la fois en
these
fonction de
companies
leur taille et des
according to
secteurs
their size
d'activité
and
selon
their
les
activity
différentes catégories que nous
sectors,
avons
depending
pu
on the different categories
élaborer dans
that
les
we
questionnaires.
identified
L'objectif aussi
in the
est
questionnaire.
au-delà de
And
la classification,
beyond
du classement
this
des entreprises,
ranking of
d'attribuer
companies,
une note
to
à
give
ces
a
entreprises
grade
afin de
to the
pouvoir
companies
eux
in
s'auto-évaluer
order
dans
for
les
them to
différents items
self-evaluate according to the in the different categories identified, and to improve, to know where they can do better, where they are doing well, and the possibility for us to create reports not just about the grading and ranking of companies based on all the different criteria that we identified. So this questionnaire that we'll share with you, will show you, also helps us to enhance, to show the value of the different and best practices of the various company present on the platform. And so it's also an aim of active participation of the players.
Donc je vous avais dit qu'on avait eu la chance de
So as I told you, we were able to work with college students who built this prototype, and so they will show you what they did. We wanted them to show it to you. Here we have Séraphin Poirier, from left to right, Adrien Solo, Ryan Semaon et Yazid Mafa.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Nous vous souhaititons tout d'abord la
Good
bienvenue
evening,
et vous remercions
all.
d'être là
First
ce
of all,
soir.
welcome and
Pour ce
thank you
projet,
for
nous
being
avons
here
conçu une
tonight
plateforme
for
web
this
qui se distingue
project.
par sa simplicité
We
d'utilisation
conceived
et sa robustesse.
a web
Nous avons essayé
platform
de suivre
which
au
is
maximum les
simple
meilleures pratiques en matière de développement web, en
strong.
mettant l'accent sur
We
la
followed
sécurité,
the
la
best
performance et l'expérience utilisateur.
practices
Je vous présenterai
with
la page
and
principale ainsi que le système
focusing on
d'insertion et de
performance
connexion. Ryan
and
présentera le
ease
questionnaire
of
et
use.
Séraphin la page
And
de données et
we
nous
will
parlera des pages
share
annexes,
the
comme la
presentation,
page de contact.
and we'll also
Yazid fera
share
une démonstration
and also
directe pendant
talking
notre
about the
discussion.
contact page.
Nous allons commencer la présentation du
So
prototype
we'll
par la
start
page
the
principale.
presentation by the
Elle est
main
composée d'une
page.
introduction de la plateforme
There
et du
is
projet
an
CSSC,
introduction
avec en
about the
dessous 3 blocs
platform
qui
and the
mènent et expliquent
CSSC
à 3 autres
project
pages.
with 3 blocks
Dans le premier
leading
bloc,
to
le
different
questionnaire, le
pages. The
second,
first
l'espace de
one
collaboration entre les
block
entreprises,
talks
et dans
about
le
the
dernier, qui
CSSC
est encore en cours
questionnaire.
de
Second,
développement, une
the
liste de projets qui sera
collaboration
affichée,
space for
permettant aux entreprises de
companies,
consulter et de
and
choisir
the
ceux qu'elles
a
souhaitent
space
financer.
where
Les
projects and
municipalités et
companies
les gestionnaires de
can
sites pourront ajouter
connect,
des
so
projets.
the companies can
En dessous,
pick the project
vous
they
aurez
want to
accès à une
finance.
page des meilleures
And
pratiques si vous êtes connecté.
below there, you'll
D'autres boutons vous
see, if
mèneront
you're
vers des pages
connected,
comme
you'll
la
see
méthodologie,
a
la
page
privatisation
that
des
leads
données,
to
les
the best
contacts, ainsi que
practices,
le lien vers le
and
site
then
original du
links
projet CSSC.
towards the rating
Passons
methodology, the
maintenant au système
privacy policies,
d'inscription.
and our contact. So to register to the platform,
Du coup, je disais que Yazid va vous remplir devant vous, puis
so
on passera à la
Yazid
connexion.
will fill it
Au
out
passage, le mot de passe est
right
haché
now.
dans la base de données pour prévenir tout risque en cas de piratage.
And a password is also
Pour la
hidden
connexion,
in the
il
database,
vous
so
suffira de
there's no
remettre
piracy
l'identifiant et le
risk.
mot de passe que vous avez
To
mis lors de
reconnect,
l'inscription.
just put in your ID and password.
Voilà. Je laisse donc la parole à Ryan qui va vous
And
présenter
now
le
I will
questionnaire.
let Ryan present the questionnaire. Hi.
Alors bonjour, passons maintenant à la fonctionnalité principale de la plateforme, le
So
questionnaire.
we'll talk
Pour
now
cela,
about
nous allons
the
nous connecter à un
main
profil qui a
functionality
déjà
of the
rempli le
platform, the
questionnaire afin de
questionnaire,
simplifier la
and
démonstration.
we'll look at one that's pre-filled, so to make it easier for us to present.
En cliquant sur le questionnaire, une boîte de dialogue s'affiche à l'écran pour vous demander si vous
So
voulez
when
reprendre le
you
questionnaire
first
là où
get
vous êtes
there,
arrêté,
you
ou le
can
recommencer à zéro.
you
Dans
have a
le cas où, par
question
exemple, une
asking if
entreprise
you want
composée de
to
plusieurs
keep it
services,
to
où chaque
start again
service
where
est
we
chargé de
stopped, to
répondre à une
start
certaine partie de
from
ce questionnaire.
start over.
Nous allons choisir de reprendre la saisie
So
là où nous sommes
we'll
arrêtés.
we'll pick to start where we
En accédant au
we
questionnaire,
stopped.
nous remarquons qu'il est
So when
divisé
we
en
get
7
to the
étapes.
questionnaire, we
Chaque
see
étape
that there are
représente une
7
thématique sur la
steps.
diversité
Each
culturelle
one
entre une entreprise.
addresses a different
Par
theme
exemple,
of
la structure
cultural
de la
diversity.
compagnie,
For example, first, the company structure,
l'influence des gouvernements,
the
les
influence
droits
of
culturels,
government, cultural rights,
les politiques et pratiques,
policies and practices,
l'ouverture au dialogue interculturel
the
à l'extérieur
openness
de
to
l'entreprise,
intercultural dialogue outside the company,
la diversité
the
RH
diversity of the
l'entreprise.
company's human resources,
Et enfin,
and
les
finally,
investissements en faveur
the
des droits
investment in
culturels
favor
en
of
et des
cultural and
créativités
creative
en
industries
entreprise.
of the
Nous pouvons
company.
remarquer
As you can
que
see,
chaque étape est divisée en plusieurs
each
questions
step
et sous-questions.
has several questions
S'affiche
and
en fonction de la
sub-questions,
réponse à la
and
questionnaire.
each one
Par exemple, au question
shows up
suivi, nous avons
depending
celle
on
qui
the previous
s'affiche.
question.
Par contre,
So,
quand nous scrollons, nous avons un champ de texte
so for example, if I answer
expliquer
yes here,
pourquoi nous
I
pensons.
can explain
À
and
la fin du questionnaire, nous avons le choix
or
de
not,
seule
depending on
réponse
my
pour y revenir
answer.
plus tard.
And at the
Tout ce qui est
end
surtout
of the
nous pour envoyer
questionnaire,
une réponse à notre base de données
we
de
can
manière fiable et sécurisée. Nous
also,
sommes
there's a
alors
way to
dirigés
send this back to our database in
afin
a
de
safe
visualiser nos
way.
résultats sur la
And we
page
can
donnée que Serafin vous
also
présente.
visualize
Bonsoir,
the
du coup c'est
data.
moi qui vais vous présenter la page de données. Donc
And
la page de données, c'est la page qui va regrouper toutes les
so
informations que
the
l'entreprise
data page
a données à la plateforme.
shows all the
Et on
information
commence par
that
les
the
informations
company
qui
has
ont été
given the
remplies à
platform.
l'inscription. Donc voilà, il y a
And
toutes les catégories qui ont été mises et c'est là aussi
here are
que
all the
l'entreprise va pouvoir
categories,
les
and
changer.
that's also where
Donc par
the
exemple, si
company
vous
can
passez d'une
change. For
grande
instance,
entreprise
if you
à
go
une
from one
entreprise
large company
moyenne ou
to
l'inverse,
a
vous pouvez
medium
le
size
changer
or
ici
vice
et
versa, you
voilà,
could
ça se
change
met à
it
jour immédiatement.
here, and it's
Donc
updated
voilà,
immediately.
ensuite, on pourra sur cette page télécharger un rapport
So
qu'on
on
vous
this
montrera
page,
à la
you
fin,
can upload a
qui va vous
report
permettre de garder une
that
trace de
will
toutes les
give
informations
you
qui ont
a
été remplies.
trace of all the
Ensuite,
information
on a
that
les
you put
classements
in, you
qui
input it, and then you have the
vont permettre aux
rankings
entreprises de se rendre compte
that
d'où elles en sont par rapport aux autres
that
dans le
where
domaine de la
companies
diversité
can
culturelle.
can see
Donc,
where
il y a
they're
trois
ranked
classements
compared
qui
to
sont
others.
présents
So
sur
there
cette
are
page.
two
Il y a le
rankings
classement
on this
général
page: the
le
general, the
classement par
overall
rapport au
ranking,
secteur
the
et le
ranking
classement
in
par
your
rapport à
sector,
la taille de
and
l'entreprise.
the ranking
Les
based on the
classements, ils
size of the
sont
company.
dynamiques, c'est-à-dire qu'ils
These
réagissent
rankings are
immédiatement
dynamic, which
à
means
n'importe quel
that
changement. Donc là, comme
they
on peut le
react
voir, on va
immediately
passer
to
d'une
whichever
petite moyenne
change.
entreprise à une
So, for
micro-entreprise.
instance, if we change
Et
it here from
voilà,
micro
les classements ont
to
changé
medium
en
size to
fonction.
micro
Alors là,
enterprise,
c'est pas
the
très
ranking
explicite. Je crois
will
qu'avec une
change.
grande
Here,
entreprise, on va mieux le voir.
it's not that
Euh,
obvious. Here, maybe with a large
si ça
large
marche.
company,
Mais
it may
voilà,
be
là,
more
on a
obvious.
vu, on était
Yes,
classé
here
premier parmi
we went
les plus
from
grosses entreprises
1
et dans les grandes entreprises, on est
from
classé cinquième.
5.
Donc voilà, les
Well,
classements
now that
réagissent
we
directement
change
aux
the size, so the
informations
ranking
qui sont données.
changes immediately
Donc ensuite, on
depending
peut
on the
aller voir les
data entered.
graphiques. Il y a 4
And
graphiques
then
sur
we
cette
can
page qui
look
vont
at
encore une fois permettre
the
pour les
tables
entreprises d'avoir une
and
meilleure idée
the graphs
de leur score et
that
de ce
can
que le
show
score veut dire. Donc là, par
the
exemple, on a un
ranking and
graphe
what it
qui
means.
montre
So, for
la contribution
instance,
à la
the
diversité
first
à
ones
l'intérieur de
show
l'entreprise.
the contribution
Donc en
of the
vert
company
clair,
to
on a le
diversity
score de
within
la
the
compagnie,
company. So,
enfin
in
de
light
l'entreprise,
green,
pardon.
you have the
Et
company
ensuite, on a le score moyen et
score.
le meilleur
Then
score.
you have the average score and
Donc voilà,
the
avec les
best
chiffres qui
score.
s'affichent. Là, ici, on a la même chose avec la diversité
Here
en
again, we
dehors
have the
de
same
l'entreprise.
thing
Et ensuite,
with
on a deux
diversity
autres
outside the
graphes
business.
qui,
And then
eux,
we
sont
have
plus
two more
précis,
graphs that are more
puisque en fait, ils vont
precise,
reprendre
given that
exactement les catégories
it
du questionnaire
goes over
et
once
vont
again
afficher
the
le score de
different
l'entreprise, le
categories of
score
the
moyen et le
questionnaire.
meilleur score.
And then it
Donc
shows
voilà, ça
you
va
that
permettre
the
aux
medium
entreprises
score
d'avoir
is the
une idée
best
très
score. It
précise
will
d'où
allow
ils
the
en sont
business
par
to have
rapport
a better
à chaque
idea
critère de
of where they
notation
are
et peut-être
regarding
d'imaginer des
notation
axes
criteria and
d'amélioration
to
à
imagine
choisir.
better axes
Donc
to
voilà.
improve
Donc ensuite, on va pouvoir vous
selection
montrer le
choices. And
téléchargement
overall, that's
de
how it
cette
works.
page,
And we
ce
can help
qui
you see
donne.
how downloading the
Voilà, là,
page
on peut
works.
télécharger un PDF
You
qui va
can
s'afficher comme ça.
download a PDF. It's going to show up like
Ça
this.
va permettre aux entreprises de
It's going
garder une
to
trace
allow
des
businesses
informations qu'elles ont
to
rentrées
keep a record
et
of the
de voir
information that they
comment leur
inputted
score
and to see
a
how their
évolué, peut-être
scores
après avoir
evolved
implémenté
after
différentes,
they had
différentes idées pour contribuer à
perhaps
la
contributed
diversité
different
culturelle
ideas
à
and
l'intérieur ou à l'extérieur de
how
l'entreprise. Donc
within
voilà
and outside the
voilà
business
le
they
PDF
have tried
qui se
to
génère. Donc voilà
engage
pour la page
with
donnée.
diversity,
Et donc
inclusion,
je vais vous présenter
and
les quelques pages annexes
put into practice
qu'il y
this.
a,
And I'll show
commencer
you
par
now the
la
next
méthodologie de notation.
pages covering the
Donc voilà,
annotation
cette page,
methodology,
elle est là vraiment
the rating
dans une démarche de
methodology. So
transparence
this
avec
page is
l'utilisateur.
here for
C'est-à-dire
transparency
qu'on
for
va
the end
expliquer sur
user,
cette
and
page
we're going
comment
to
les
explain
notes
here
sont générées
how
Et
Nodes are
voilà, c'est
generated
vraiment, pour que les entreprises puissent avoir une
for
idée, précise
businesses to have a
de ce qu'on
precise
a fait avec leurs
idea
réponses
of what
et
was done with their
voilà.
answers.
Ensuite, en plus de
And
cette
then
page,
after
on a une
that,
page,
we have
de politique de protection des données. Il y a pas
a
de
privacy
données
information
personnelles,
protection page. There's
qu'on
no
garde,
private
à part l'adresse
information
mail,
that is collected
mais
other than
voilà.
the
Dans le
email
design, normalement, c'est
address.
que des données publiques, mais donc
These
du
are
coup,
just
cette page,
public
elle
data,
récapitule,
and this page
l'objectif de la
summarizes
donnée,
the
des données
goals
qu'on garde, la base
of why
légale,
we collect personal
et les
data, the
catégories,
legal
et les
basis
catégories de
of
données.
this,
Donc
and the
voilà, pareil,
different
c'est encore dans
categories
une
of
démarche de
data.
transparence avec les utilisateurs.
And
On
then
veut que,
for
le projet
users to
soit le
know
plus transparent
exactly
possible.
why we use things,
Voilà, donc c'est
and for
normal.
transparency
Et la
purposes, of course,
dernière
this is
page qu'on
totally
va vous
normal that we would
présenter,
disclose
c'est la
this.
page
And the
contact.
last page is the contact
Cette page,
page.
elle a un objectif principal
This
qui est donc,
page has
de
one main
contacter,
purpose, which is
les
to
personnes responsables du
reach out to
projet.
the
Donc, si vous avez une question, par
responsible
exemple, si vous voulez,
project
dialoguer
people. And if
avec
you
les
want to
responsables du domaine,
dialogue
vous pouvez
with
utiliser
the
cette page.
various people
Et
involved in the
le deuxième
project,
objectif de cette
the
page,
second
c'est
purpose
si vous avez un
is
projet à soumettre
if
à
you
la
have a
plateforme,
project
ben
to
voilà, là, on
submit to
voit,
the
vous avez
platform, you're going
un
to see
formulaire qui se
here
télécharge
a
et qu'il faut
form is
remplir
going to
pour
be available
l'envoyer
to
et
download, and then
voir si le projet ou non va être
it's
accepté.
something you can
Et dans
fill,
le cas où le
return,
projet
and we
est
will
accepté,
screen
il
it.
sera mis sur
And
l'espace
in
de
case we
collaboration entre
approve it, we
les
put it
entreprises et
on
les projets.
a cooperation collaboration page.
Donc voilà, pour nous, on a fait le tour du site.
And so this is
Merci de nous
our
avoir
part.
écoutés et si vous avez
We went through the
questions, on
site
sera
in a
ravis de
cursory
répondre,
fashion. Thank you for having listened to
voilà.
us. And if you have any questions,
Merci
we'll
beaucoup.
be delighted to
Est-ce
answer
qu'il y
them.
aurait des questions
Thank you so
si vous pouvez
much.
écrire dans le
If
chat si
you
vous
have
avez des
any
questions pour les
questions
étudiants, parce qu'ils vont peut-être
for
pas
the
rester
students, because they
jusqu'au
may
bout,
not be
mais
here
ils
till
seront
the
heureux
end of the presentation, but if you have
de
questions for
clarifier
that,
quelque
they'll
chose.
be
Donc voilà,
glad
s'il y
to
a
clarify
des doutes ou des
any
questionnements sur les différentes fonctionnalités,
questions,
sur ce qu'ils vont
any
construire, sur la
doubts you
technologie
may
utilisée.
have regarding the technology that was used.
Non? Donc comme vous avez vu, on vous a
Given
montré, le
that
prototype permet d'avoir un premier classement.
we showed you this prototype, this
Obrigada,
classification.
Donc ça nous permet d'avoir un premier classement, enfin,
This is
les
like a
premiers
first
classements des entreprises selon le
classification
secteur, selon
of
la taille.
businesses depending on the
Mais nous
size
sommes encore
of the
développés depuis,
business,
en fait, en
and we are
parallèle, nous
developing
avons travaillé
in
aussi sur
parallel to this other
d'autres niveaux de services ou d'autres niveaux de
service
détail de
levels
l'analyse
or
des données qu'on
other
a collectées,
detail levels
avec
of
l'aide
the
de Shane
collected
Quinn qui est avec nous
details
et qui va vous
with the
montrer un
help
peu
of
les
Shane
choses
Queens,
que nous
who's
sommes
also here
capables en
with
fait
us, and he's going to
d'analyser
show us
en termes de
the
données qu'on a collectées. Et
extent to
une
which
fois
we
que la
can
plateforme
use
sera
this
complexifiée, on aura toutes ces
platform.
fonctionnalités.
And once all
Nous
the
aurons
functionalities of the
justement
platform are
ces autres classements,
put
ces
in place,
autres
we'll have
niveaux
other types
d'analyse
of
de données.
classifications, levels of analysis of the data collected.
Oh, apologies. I tried to go on video there, but it won't let me. Well, thank you, Lillian, and thank you to the entire team for inviting me to this fantastic webinar. It's been really interesting to hear everything so far. My name is Shane Quinn. I'm based in Ireland, and I've been assisting this great team with their work on producing some of the reporting. So all the data in the dashboards that you will see on screen here comes automatically from the questionnaire responses. And this one in particular here is the company dashboard. I would love to explain all this in French, but unfortunately my knowledge doesn't extend past basic school level, so I don't want to embarrass myself. So this is an example of the company report you'll see on screen here. This is specifically what each individual company, the data that they will see. This is a snippet of the information. There is so much more information that will go into this, but at a high level, this is what I've developed so far. And you can see similar to what the guys have developed on the website, you have the total score ranking. It tells you exactly as a company how you rank compared to all the other companies that have been surveyed. It also tells you financially how much investment where you are on the ranking. It shows you all the data regarding to your diversity within the company, the diversity outside the company. It tells you your score, how your score compares to the average score, and how it compares to the best score. So what the level is you want to aim at to get to. Then we can see at the bottom as well, we have lots of information around diversity, in the company's human resources. I think we on to the next slide. So this dashboard here forms part of the internal dashboard. So separate to what the companies will see, the internal team will see another dashboard, and this gives a lot more granular information for comparing companies. So these charts and graphs will show you, for example, how many companies or departments specialize in cultural diversity. As you can see there from the example sample data, only one specialize in it, where 3 don't. And then under that, even more granular data showing how many countries the companies operate on versus how many nationalities are represented among those employees in the company. So lots of really good granular data based on all the information that the company supplied in the questionnaire. And then on the last slide, this is the main dashboard. And again, this is part of the internal dashboard for the team. And this shows all the companies, ranked by value, ranked by sector. So we can see how well they are performing, not overall, but even by sector. So we've got, as an example here, the banking and insurance sector and the footwear, textiles, and clothing sector. We've also baselined that against the average. And down at the bottom, again, getting more granular, showing the score versus the average in those additional questions like company structure, cultural rights, influencing government, things like that. Oh, thank you very much. I'll hand it back over to Lillian.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you so much. On peut passer à la prochaine. Je suis désolée, j'ai aucun contrôle sur les. Donc, je vous ai parlé des futures fonctionnalités qu'on
Thank
souhaite
you.
ajouter
So
à
I
la
was talking to
plateforme.
you about the different
Donc, la
functionalities
première,
that we want to add to
les
the
étudiants
platform. The first
d'informatique
one,
vous ont montré la
the
possibilité de nous soumettre des
computer
projets
science
via un
students showed
formulaire
you
que
how
on
we want to
a
submit
déjà
projects
intégré au
through
prototype.
a form that we've
L'idée, c'est aussi que
incorporated
les
in a
municipalités
prototype.
qui
The idea
voudraient
also
participer à la
is for
plateforme puissent avoir leur
municipalities
profil
to
et
have their own
elles aussi
profiles
présélectionner des
and to
projets
pre-select
culturels qui ont
cultural
un impact sur la
projects
diversité
that
culturelle
have
locale
an impact on
qui
local
pourraient
cultural
ensuite être
diversity that may
choisis par une
then
entreprise pour
after
tout
be
type de soutien.
picked
Donc,
up by a
on a vu qu'il n'y a
business
pas
for all
que
kinds
le
of
soutien
support
financier.
available. There's not
Donc,
only
l'idée,
the
c'est qu'on puisse
funding
développer cette partie. Ça
part of the
ne fait pas
support.
partie encore du
This
prototype tel
is
qu'on l'a
not
aujourd'hui.
yet part of the
Nous
prototype
allons aussi
as we know it
intégrer
today. We've
l'intelligence
also
artificielle générative
integrated
pour que les questionnaires
AI
puissent être
so that
pré-remplis. Donc, nous
forms
savons à
may
quel point
be
les entreprises aujourd'hui
pre-filled.
passent beaucoup de
We
temps
like,
à
we
remplir des
know that
questionnaires, à
today
soumettre des données, à faire du
companies
reporting.
take a lot of
Donc,
time
l'idée serait
filling
de
in
partir
forms and
des
doing
documents qui sont déjà
reporting.
disponibles
And the idea
publics de
would
ces
be to
entreprises
start with public
pour
information
ensuite avoir
available
un
to
pré-remplissage
pre-fill
du questionnaire
these
qu'elles auraient qu'à
forms.
vérifier
And
et à
then the
valider.
companies would only have
Elles auront
to
la
verify
possibilité
and
évidemment de
validate the
suivre leur
information. They
performance
would, of
et
course, have the
la tendance
opportunity
sur les
to
différents critères
follow the
qu'on
performance,
applique dans les questionnaires
seeing how the criteria
au fil du temps.
applies over time.
On a aussi l'objectif de créer
We
un
also
prix ou
have
un
an
label pour
objective
les
to
entreprises
create
les plus performantes.
a price or a
Et comme vous avez
label
vu,
for the most
les
performing, the
deux
best
piliers à
performing
côté
companies. And as
des
you
étudiants
may
nous ont montré
have
le
seen next to
prototype,
the
nous avons
pillars
trois
of what the
piliers. En
students
gros, le questionnaire,
presented, we
un
have a
espace de
pillar at the top.
collaboration
We
entre
have a
entreprises. Donc ça
collaboration
vient du besoin
portion between
exprimé par
businesses.
beaucoup
This
de
stems
personnes que nous
from the
avons
needs
interviewées au
expressed
sein d'entreprises qui nous
amongst a
disaient
lot
qu'ils
of
aimeraient bien pouvoir
the
échanger avec
companies
des
we
entreprises de même
surveyed.
taille,
They
du
said
même
that they would like
secteur,
to exchange with
dans un même pays,
other
tout simplement
companies
pour
of
comprendre,
their
comment ils font
field in
pour
the same
relever certains
country
défis communs.
in order to know
Donc
how
ça
to
fait
meet some
partie
of
aussi
the
des
common
fonctionnalités
challenges they
futures de la plateforme
face. And
et un
this
espace
is
d'échange
a future
entre les
functionality
entreprises
that
et
we're
le secteur
working on,
culturel
and
des
they would
artistes où
allow
justement
the
Donc,
cultural
genre,
sector,
d'un
artists,
côté, des
and
appels à projets,
the
donc
businesses to work
l'entreprise, et de
together.
l'autre côté, des
And
projets
on
soumis
one
soit par une
side, you would
municipalité,
have
soit
projects
présélectionnés
from the
par notre
businesses,
équipe
and on the
du
other
projet
side, from the
CSSC.
communities or projects selected by
Je te
the
passe ma
CSSC
parole, du coup,
project.
merci.
Alors sur les
I will now
prochaines
give
étapes,
you the floor. On the
actuellement, on est
next
surtout en
steps,
recherche
we
de
are
financement, puisque notre
currently
premier financement dans le cadre de la
searching for
prématuration
funding
s'achève
because
à la fin du
the
mois. Donc nous avons déjà
end of our funding
postulé
is
pour un
coming close
financement
towards the
BPI
end of
France
the
qui
month, and
est
so
plutôt centré
BPI
sur
France
les
is centered
valorisation de
on
projets tech et
valuing
de
tech
mise sur le marché, enfin de
projects,
création d'entreprises
business
tournées vers les
building,
technologies
more
et qui nous
focused on
permettrait aussi de
technology
travailler
that would
avec
also
Liberté
allow us
Living
to
Lab, qui
work
est un
with
incubateur
Liberté Living
favorisant la
Lab,
création
which is an
d'entreprises.
incubator
Alors plus
for startup companies.
précisément,
So more
nos besoins en
precisely,
termes
our
de
needs,
financement sont multiples. D'abord, le
funding-wise,
financement du
are
partenaire
multiple. So
nouvelles technologies,
new
Poiesis, pour
technologies
nous permettre de développer, enfin de mettre en
would
place et
allow
de
us
développer
to
la
put in
plateforme avec toutes les
place the
fonctionnalités
platform
que
with
Liliane
all
vous a
its
expliquées.
functionalities, as Liliane
Financement
explained
également
to
pour les
you.
aspects
Funding also for
juridiques et réglementaires, savoir
legal
quelle est
and
la meilleure structure
regulatory
envisagée
aspects,
pour
to know
développer
what are the
le projet.
best
Il y a
structures
différents types de
to
structures qui peuvent s'offrir à nous, une
adopt
entreprise, une
for a
ONG,
company, for
dans
an
le cadre de
NGO,
notre projet. En fait,
depending
différentes
on
solutions s'offrent à
our
nous. Il faut
project, different
pouvoir faire une
solutions are
étude
available,
sur
and we need to
la structure qui
study
sera la plus
the
appropriée.
most appropriate
Il s'agit aussi de
structure,
financer
and
la
also
direction,
to
le
fund
management, la coordination de notre projet
higher
et de la
management,
future structure, tous les aspects
the
communication et
structure of
marketing. Et puis, il ne faut pas
marketing,
oublier que ce projet, c'est
communications
d'abord un
within the
projet de
company.
recherche, même si il s'inscrit dans une
This
logique de
project is
valorisation. Donc,
above
il faut
all a research
continuer
project, so
évidemment
we must
la recherche,
continue to
l'analyse, le
research,
travail de
analyze
développement des données du projet
how to develop
SSC tel qu'on l'a
the
conçu. Donc, vraiment, notre objectif,
CSSC
c'est
project,
de
the way it
pouvoir
was originally
offrir des services,
designed.
notamment
Our purpose
les
is to
rapports
offer
sur les analyses
services
de
to
données,
study
à
the
la fois pour
analysis
les
reports
entreprises,
on
pour des
data
organisations
collected
internationales, pour
for
des
companies,
acteurs
international
publics.
organizations, public
Alors, vu la
authorities.
méthodologie qui a été
Given the
mise en place grâce aux
methodology
techniques
put
de
in place
médiation,
with the
si cette
mediation
méthodologie
techniques,
fonctionne, on
if this
arrive
methodology works, we
à
would
montrer en
then
fait qu'elle
be
fonctionne dans cette mise
able
en relation
to
de différentes parties
show
prenantes,
how it
privées,
works
publiques, et puis ici un secteur
between public and
particulier,
private
la culture.
organizations
Notre idée est de
with
promouvoir
the
en fait cette méthodologie dans d'autres
aspect of
secteurs et
culture.
notamment de
And we would like to
l'appliquer
then
au
implement it in
secteur,
other
par exemple, de
fields,
la cybersécurité, qui
including
là aussi fait intervenir
cybersecurity,
des acteurs
where
publics avec
they're
des objectifs
also
particuliers,
involving
des entreprises et
public
tout un écosystème de la
actors,
cybersécurité. Donc, on
involving all
pourra
aspects of
tester la méthodologie mise en place sur les
cybersecurity.
questions
We
de
would be
cybersécurité,
testing this
les questions culturelles,
technology on
pour savoir dans quelle
cultural
mesure il faut
issues
adapter
affecting
finalement cette
cybersecurity, to know
méthodologie
to what extent do we
dans
have
des
to
secteurs
adapt
différents,
the
avec des
technology
logiques
in
différentes,
different
ce qui
sectors
permettrait à
with
terme
different value
déployer
systems, different logics.
finalement la méthode
And
CSSC, j'ai envie de
we
dire,
would like to deploy
à
the
plein d'autres
CSST
secteurs
method, if
où
we can
il
call it,
s'agirait
in other
de
fields
permettre aux politiques publiques
in
de
order
répondre
to
à
allow
des objectifs propres à un
public
secteur
policies to
économique
target
particulier et
specific
faciliter la mise en
economic
relation
fields
entre
to
les entreprises d'une part
facilitate
et les autres
the
acteurs d'autre
business
part de ce secteur. Donc, si
implementation
tout ça
in a
fonctionne dans le
given
développement
field. So
de
if
notre
everything
projet, on
works
pourra décliner
according to
cette
our
méthode
aims, we will be
vraiment
able
dans
to
beaucoup d'autres secteurs
see
différents
a
en
ripple
fonction de nos
effect of this
spécialités de
methodology in
recherche
other
notamment.
fields outside
Donc,
our
il est temps
current
maintenant d'ouvrir la
research.
discussion et
It
je
is
laisse
now
à nouveau
time
la
to
parole
open the
à Liliane et à tous
discussion.
nos intervenants.
Bon, je voudrais dire quelques mots donc sur
I'd like to
Sandra,
say a
qui
few
est
words
une amie
regarding
que j'apprécie
Sandra,
énormément,
who's a
qui est
friend that
directrice
I
juridique
very
de L'Oréal au
appreciate.
Brésil.
She's
Elle
a
est
legal director of
avocate avec
L'Oréal
plus
in
de 30 ans
Brazil. She's a
d'expérience,
lawyer with more than 30
spécialisée dans le droit des relations avec les consommateurs. Elle a un
years
master
of
en droit du fait
experience,
collectif,
specialized
un MBA en
in
gestion de
consumer
business,
relations law and
que
holding a
des
master's
d'excellentes
degree in diffuse
universités
and
au
collective
Brésil.
rights.
Elle
She
est
holds
aussi
both
vice-présidente chargée des questions
obtained at
juridiques et de
PU,
conformité
SP,
de
excellent
l'Institut
universities
Mulher e
in
do Varejo.
Brazil. She is
Il a
also
été élu
vice
pendant 5
president
années
in charge of
consécutives
legal
comme
and
l'un des
compliance
directeurs juridiques les
issues
plus
at
admirés
the
du Brésil
Mulheres de
et a
Varejo
figuré pendant 2
Institute
années
and has
consécutives
been
aussi dans
elected
The
for
Legal
5
500 comme
consecutive
l'un des
years
directeurs
as one of the
juridiques
most
les plus
admired legal
influents
directors
du pays.
in Brazil.
Elle va être
And
accompagnée
listed
de
for 2
Dione
consecutive
Assis,
years in the legal
qui est la
so
fondatrice de Black
as one of
Sisters
the
in
most
Law, une initiative
influential legal directors in
géniale
the country.
qu'on
She
a,
will be
que j'ai
followed by
pu
Diane
connaître grâce à
Aces,
Sandra,
founder of Black
qui rassemble
Sisters in
plus de 30
Law,
000
an
avocates noirs au
initiative
Brésil et à
that brings
l'étranger.
together more than
Dione est avocate
3,000
titulaire d'une
Black
licence
lawyers
d'une
in
maîtrise en
Brazil and
droit
abroad. And I was
à
introduced to
Rio,
her by Sandra
spécialisée en droit public et
in
privé,
Rio.
doctorante
She's a
en
lawyer with a
droit. Elle
bachelor
est
and a
associée
master's in law
d'un
from the
cabinet d'avocats qui
Fundação
s'appelle
Getúlio
Gardino
Vargas School of Law in
Advogados,
Brazil,
travaillant dans le
specialized in
domaine de la
public and private
restructuration, du
law.
redressement
Rio de
d'entreprises, du
Janeiro State
contentieux stratégique d'entreprises.
Judiciary
Elle est
School.
directrice de
She's
projet
PhD
de
student in
International
law
Women's Insolvency and Restructuring
through
Confederation au
Fluminense
Brésil
Federal University,
et
partner
conseillère
at
du
Galdino
Conseil
and
des femmes
Coelho
d'affaires
Advogados,
de
working in
l'Association
the area of
commerciale
corporate
de Rio de Janeiro.
restructuring and strategic corporate litigation. She's also
Je vais
project
dire quelques
director
mots en
of the
portugais, juste pour
International
compliquer un
Women's
petit peu le travail
Insolvency and
des
Restructuring
avocats.
Confederation,
Donc, muito
Brazil. I'm
obrigada,
going to
Sandra e
say a
Dione, por
few
esse
words
presente que
in
vocês estão dando para a
Portuguese.
gente hoje, compartilhando essas iniciativas que vocês têm desenvolvido para mais diversidade cultural, mais inclusão no Brasil e, claro, fora, com a influência da L'Oréal, com a influência do seu projeto, Dione, a gente espera que isso possa só se multiplicar.
Bon, merci, merci à vous. Bonjour à tous. Je m'excuse par avance après de de vous tous pour mon français très limité. Même si je suis mariée avec un mec français, je suis étudiante de français. Bon, je fais des erreurs, mais c'est bon. Bon, c'est un plaisir d'être avec vous. Je connais Lilian depuis beaucoup d'années. Lilian, c'est une professionnelle, une personne que j'admire beaucoup. Bon, et je suis très heureuse de partager des initiatives que L'Oréal et maintenant les juridiques de L'Oréal.
I'm really happy to work with L'Oréal, and L'Oréal has started to set strategies towards diversity. And Lilian already introduced me, and thank you. And in all these companies where I worked with diversity on diversity initiatives, but when all we have are policies or people who are not really involved with the discussion until the end, you don't see results. And when I see the methodologies that you are setting up, I'm thinking that it will really help companies to see the initiatives that work, that are effective. And this is why I am so happy to be participating in this project, even if I'm only talking about L'Oréal initiatives. You know that I will help you even personally, because this discussion, this work is really is a passion for me. So I will share my screen now.
Bon, ça. Bon, L'Oréal, c'est une entreprise qui dispose
L'Oréal is a company that has a DEI department that's very structured with different diversity practices, and the legal department wants it to be involved with that. Not just as a secondary partner, but as an opportunity creator. And this is why last year, the legal department created two very important initiatives for us. One was the Pro Bono Day, which which
conseils
for
dans un jour,
legal,
pendant un jour par an,
that means
tous
that
les employés de
within
l'entreprise qui voudraient,
all
qui ont
the lawyers were able to have one day
des questions
to
juridiques
to
pour
give
régler.
to
On
offer
parlait
to
pas
anybody
des
who
sujets
had
de travail, mais on parlait de tous les autres sujets.
legal
Et
issues,
la
not
même
not
initiative,
only about
elle
work
est
issues, but all issues.
elle a fait
And the same
à une
practice
communauté, une favela, près
was
de
extended
L'Oréal.
to a
Ça, c'est
community,
important
a
pour nous parce
favela
que,
that's
c'est une
located near
contribution,
L'Oréal. And that's very important for us
pour
because
la
this is
santé
a contribution
psychologique
that's important for the
employés.
psychology,
Parce qu'on les aide
for the
régler les choses
psychological
qui,
health of
pendant
employees, because
la vie,
it's
on reste
it's a day
entier.
that
Une
we
autre
give
chose
them to
que le
solve
département
their
juridique
own
a mis
issues
en
that
place,
that
c'est un
and deal with their
Service Level
anxiety.
Agreement. Je sais pas
And
comment dire ça en français.
another initiative we've used
Nous
is
sommes en train
our SLAs.
d'évaluer
We're evaluating, I don't know how to say that in French. We're evaluating the lawyers who are service contractors through objectives that are very visible, whether they're successful
dans les actions,
in their actions, if they give us some correct data. It's about then the service quality is good. So we set up a new SLA, which is the diversity SLA, to evaluate the service contractors and to see what practices are most effective
la diversité. C'est ça.
for diversity. And
on a invité tous les prestataires
we
de services
invited
pour nous informer des
many
initiatives qu'ils ont.
service contractors to inform us of all their initiatives and their to know what their effective results are. And we award a prize, a diversity prize, which is very good, very visible for companies to consolidate their initiatives for over the years. And now, and for me, this is the cherry on top.
On a commencé une initiative avec
we started, we launched an initiative with Dion Assis from Black Sisters in Law. And this initiative started, I think, about a month ago. And I met Dion in a L'Oréal event, and we really connected. And we started our partnership 2 days after meeting, after we met. And thanks to our partnership, the legal department will, as citizens, create lawyers from Black Sisters in Law for their work, because Dion shared how difficult it is because of bias to get good opportunities. This is why we are now in partnership with Black Sisters in Law, and we will work for not only at the department, at the legal department, but also as far as mentorship and to share initiatives, to share knowledge, for knowledge sharing. L'Oréal has a lot of knowledge in some areas, and Black Sisters in other areas. So we will create, we already did actually create a partnership that's very important for both companies. And I will let Dion talk about Black Sisters in Law, which is an incredible project. And then we will give our opinion about the methodology that you are creating here at the Paris University.
Merci beaucoup, Sandra. Dione?
Thank you so much, Sandra. Dione, à vous.
Olá, boa tarde. aqui no Brasil. Boa tarde, obrigada pela
Hi, good
oportunidade.
afternoon here
Eu
in
sou
Brazil.
Johnny
It's
Assis,
good.
fundadora das Black
Good
Sisters in
afternoon.
Law.
I
Eu
am
estou muito
Johnny Assis,
feliz
the
por estar
founders
aqui,
of Black Sisters in
por
Law.
esse convite
I'm really
tão,
happy to be
tão
here. Thank you
importante
for
para
inviting
essa
me.
iniciativa que esse mês
Uh,
completa 2 anos. A Black Sisters in Law hoje, então, ela é uma
and
iniciativa que
and today,
quase
Black
4.000
Sisters in Law
advogadas negras presentes em
includes
todos os estados
more
do
than
Brasil e
4,000
também no
black lawyers
exterior.
in all the
E como
states
está
of
escrito
Brazil
aqui, o nosso
and
propósito
Rio.
é conectar
And as we
essas
say here,
profissionais
our objective is to connect these
reais vivas
professionals
no mercado jurídico
in
para
a
que elas possam
dignified
viver a
manner
advocacia
so that
com
they can
dignidade, já que foi a profissão
work
que elas escolheram.
since it's
E aí vocês
the
podem se
profession
perguntar, mas
they
qual a
chose.
dificuldade que existe no
But
Brasil?
what
Por que
is
que
the
precisa?
difficulty in
Por que que
Brazil?
o Brasil precisa de uma
Why
iniciativa
does
como a Black
Brazil
Sisters in Law?
need that
O
an
Brasil
initiative such as Black
ainda é
Sisters
um
in Law?
país que
Brazil is still
reflete
a country
problemas
that
estruturais
reflects
quando o assunto é
structural
a raça.
issues as to
E por conta
the race
disso, embora
issue.
o
And
Brasil seja
because
um
of that,
país
even
de
if Brazil,
maioria
is
populacional de
is
pessoas negras,
even
somos
we are
56% da população,
we're
essas pessoas ainda têm muita
66% black in
dificuldade
Brazil. We're the
de alcançar
majority of
oportunidades no
black
mercado. E no
people, but we
mercado
still
jurídico
have
isso acaba
difficulty to
também.
reach
Essas
the
advogadas, elas
work
conseguiram
market,
entrar na
especially
faculdade,
in the
conseguiram se
legal
formar.
era.
Normalmente elas são a
In legal
primeira da
domain.
família a
These
ingressar na
are
faculdade,
women who have
são a
been
única da
to
turma a
law
ser uma
school
mulher negra.
and they may be
No
the
mercado
first one of their
jurídico,
class
elas
of
não
being
conseguem se
a
conectar com
black
as
woman,
oportunidades,
but
porque
they
esse
can
mercado
get
ainda reflete muito do racismo
on the
estrutural.
market because
Então,
this
como a
market
gente
is
pode
still very
acelerar
reflective of
para
the
que essa
structural
profissional possa
racial
ter
issues in
acesso a essas
Brazil? So what can we do
oportunidades e
so that these women
finalmente
can
exercer a
have
profissão que
access
elas
to these
escolheram?
opportunities
A Black Sisters in
and
Law,
in
então,
the
se coloca como uma
profession that they
solução
chose?
para fazer isso
So Black
acontecer,
Sisters in Law is
conectando
a
essas profissionais
solution
com o
to
mercado, com
to have make
empresas,
this
com o escritório
happen,
de
to
advocacia.
connecting
E a
these women
L'Oréal é,
with
então, a
the
nossa
different
mais
companies.
recente
And L'Oreal
conquista,
is one
em que a
of
gente
our
fez uma
latest
parceria que vai
conquests with
permitir que
with
essas
whom we had a
advogadas
partnership,
exerçam a
and
advocacia,
which
sejam
so
atuando
that
com
that
propostas,
will
seja fazendo
enable
audiências,
these black
mas
lawyers
também outras
to
iniciativas
work
como
in the profession they
mentoria
trained as, and
e
other
diversas outras
initiatives as
atividades para
mentorship and
impulsionar a
other
carreira dessas
activities
mulheres.
to
A
help
iniciativa
them
já teve
along in their
parcerias com
careers, to help these
diversas
women in
outras
their careers.
empresas também. E
And
hoje a gente tem o
this, we have
prazer de
already had
afirmar
this
que já
partnership with other
conectamos
companies,
mais de
and
500
we
advogadas da
already
rede a
connected
oportunidades
500
reais. E quando eu
lawyers
falo de
on the
oportunidades
network
reais,
to
eu
real
falo de oportunidade por
opportunities.
meio
And
da
what I mean
qual
by that
ela
is that
pode
opportunities
receber
through which they
financeiramente
can
pelo
receive
serviço que ela prestou. A
financially,
gente quer alcançar
they
todas,
can
né? O nosso propósito é
have
alcançar
they
todas
can
essas
work and
profissionais.
receive
E a
a
gente está
financial
começando, só tem 2
uh,
anos, e a gente acredita muito que
a
esse
fair
projeto vai
financial
elevar
payment
ainda
for the
mais
service they
a
do.
excelência da
And
advocacia que
so
essas profissionais
we have a
praticam.
lot
A
of
gente já
hope
recebeu
that
diversos
this
prêmios aqui no Brasil.
that we can
Temos muito
keep
orgulho
helping
pelo
many women. We've
desenvolvimento
received
da
several
iniciativa e
awards here in
esperamos contar com vocês.
Brazil,
Né?
and we hope
Parabenizo muito a
that we can
plataforma pela
also
desenvolvida,
develop
porque
more
acredito que
with
essa
you and your
plataforma é uma
platform that
plataforma
you
que
have
vai
created, because we
permitir
believe
e
that
vai
your
dar
platform
visibilidade a iniciativas como a
will
Black
give
Sisters in
more
Law, que
visibility
são
to
nichadas, que são de um
an
segmento,
initiative like
mas
ours,
precisam
like
ter
Black Sisters in
visibilidade.
Law, that needs to
Acho
be
realmente
made more
as
visible,
empresas e as
especially
companhias que
for
estão
companies
buscando a
and
excelência nos seus
that are
produtos e nos seus
trying to
serviços,
reach that
já
aim
que
for
hoje a gente não
excellence
pode
in their
mais falar
products and services,
empresa
because
pela companhia
today
que
we
vai
cannot
desenvolver a sua atividade sem se
because we
preocupar
cannot
com o impacto
we
social que a
all
sua
companies now
atividade gera.
have
Mais uma
cannot
vez, muito
work
obrigada por
without
essa
worrying about the
oportunidade.
social impact of
Muito obrigada a você, Johnny. Obrigada, Silvia.
of their
Je
activities.
vais passer
Thank
la
you so
parole à
much.
Sylvia.
I will
Parce
now
que comme on est un
leave
petit peu
the
en
mic to
retard, on laissera
Sylvia
peut-être les
because
questions pour
we're
la
a
fin.
little bit late,
Silvia
so maybe we'll leave the
Bertozzi-Heidlich,
questions.
elle est
So
aussi
Silvia
brésilienne.
Bertozzi
Elle est
Heidlich
devenue
is
une amie
also
très
Brazilian.
proche.
She is a
Elle
very
est la
close,
Global Diversité, Équité, Inclusion, la Global
a very
Champion
close
pour la
friend now.
diversité, équité,
She's
inclusion
a global
chez
champion
COFACE,
for
qui est une
DEI at
entreprise pilote.
CoFace, which is one of our
Elle nous a
pilot
soutenus depuis le
companies,
tout début.
and
Elle a une
she's
double
been with us
formation
since
en
the beginning.
psychologie et en
She has a
administration
double
des
training
affaires,
in
plus de
psychology
24 ans
and
d'expérience dans le
business
domaine des ressources humaines.
management, and
Elle a mené
25
de
years of
nombreux projets dans
experience in
divers
human
domaines de la
resources.
gestion
She's led various projects in leadership, in management, and she started with office in 2012 as an HR manager in Brazil. Then she started as the talent manager for Latin America before having the current post in France, where she manages transversal projects in
de tout mon cœur, merci beaucoup.
So Sylvia, since you live in France, I thank you in French for listening, for your expertise, for your availability, for your support since the very beginning of this project, at each step, so thank you so much.
Je pense que tu vas la faire en anglais, ça va être plus simple aussi pour
So I will let you do your
Merci
presentation.
Liliane, bonsoir à tous. J'aimerais faire cette présentation
Thank
en
you,
français, mais mon
thank
niveau
you,
de français ne
Liliane.
me permet
I
pas
would
encore.
love to do
Peut-être
this
à
presentation
une
in
prochaine
French,
fois, donc je
but my
parle en
level
anglais.
is not good enough, so I will do it in
I'd like
English.
to talk about COFAS, so you have a view. So COFAS is an insurance company, and this is a global company. So COFAS today is present in 58 different countries. We have more than 80 different nationalities, and we have 10% of our workforce working outside their home country, like me. No, I'm Brazilian working in the headquarters. So I could say by this that we are pretty much a multinational company. But what makes me think that we are a multinational company is not these numbers, but actually how we are managing our cultural diversity. So what I really believe that COFAS embraces the difference, embraces the cultural diversity we have, and this is making COFAS not let's say a French company present in 58 countries, but really an international company with a French origin. So I would do this differentiation, but this is really because of diversity. So when Lilian invited me to pilot this project, I was really glad to take part of it, because I think this is something that we really need, this kind of projects. This is going to support not only COFAS, but other companies to upskill the multiple vision. And we really need to have some external benchmarks to understand where we are. So what I would say that in diversity, we have a lot of good intention, but good intention per se does not make a company diverse and inclusive. So we need more than this. So we need to be compared with similar companies. We need to be compared to the market in general, and also to reflect reality in our society. Oh. And we already have this when I talk about other pillars on diversity. We have this on gender, so we can compare with other companies with the same size. We have this when we discuss on LGBTQ plus people. We have this on age. So I think this project is really, really important, because it's also in line with this. And now we have this project to fulfill our needs on the cultural sector. What I could share with you, being a pilot in this project, I will mention three aspects. First one, when I was participating and answering the questionnaire, I was already learning. So it was very interesting, because you have an idea where you are, where your company, if our company is going to the right track or not. So we should not have an assumption. We should be sure. So when I was answering, I already became aware where we are working well. As Antida said, we have external diversity. So I know that on external diversity, we're not that, let's say, engaged yet. But on internal diversity, we are giving more focus. So this is the first thing. And then when you are answering, you have also good practices, because you learn some good practice that I've never thought about before, but I can put in practice. The second is what I just mentioned. I think it's to have this external benchmark where you can be compared. This is for us, D&I professional, is also important, because we need to go to the executive teams to ask resource, to ask budget, and then you say, okay, we need some data to prove that we need to do more. So the external comparison and data, it's really a key factor for us to achieve, to go further on D&I. Last but not least, I think is to create this pool of professionals on D&I where we can exchange, we can build together some initiatives. Why not? So I believe that diversity should go beyond the organizational walls, and this is something that would benefit the community in general. No, so I would highlight these three aspects. Just to share a bit on where we are, what we are doing on D&I. We are doing lots of things on D&I. I will focus here on this cultural pillar, which is the highlight of this evening. So, like many companies, we have committees to discuss and to take decisions. And these committees at COFAS, they are really diverse in terms of culture. So we never have, or we are not having, let's say, one exec team that's only French people to decide what to do. So it's really to listen different voices in different regions and to understand how can we better fit our customers' needs. So on this side, I think it helps a lot to have this broad vision and promote this. This is multiculturalism promoting this benefit. Then, as other companies, we have some inclusive training. We have some inclusive leadership training, and we are always evolving cultural diversity as such. We have a specific program that's called reverse mentoring, and this reverse mentor is really focused on D&I. So we have some people from any kind of minorities that they are mentoring senior leaderships. There are many steps to match the pairs in this program, but what I would say that I never had two people in the same country. So at least multiculturalism is there. So I try also to have them in different continents because I think this helps to broaden the view. And we try to put people with very different age and gender. So as how we match the reverse mentoring is as much diverse they are, the better it is. So this is one of the programs that's also helping us to achieve our diversity goals. We have also workshop to formalize. So it's a 7.5-hour program to formalize ships inside COFAS, and they work also with some small groups. And the cultural, it's the same thing. We try to put people in different countries at least to work together. We have every year a D&I week, so it's a full week dedicated to all the topics on D&I, and every year we have one day fully dedicated to culturality. So we have testimonies, we have people sharing their learnings and their best practices as well. We are also now under an inclusive benefit project. The idea of this project is to see how can we increase the level of benefits that we are offering to all employees in terms of maternity leaves, but also in terms of religion. So this is where cultural it's bringing. How can we accommodate religions holidays that are not fulfilled in the national holidays of each and every country? So we are. This is an ongoing project at this moment, and in addition to these projects, which are global that I have just mentioned, we have, of course, other projects that are local. So if we're talking about race, for example, the USA and South Africa, they have very specific dedicated projects because the needs on diversity and inclusion is really different between country to countries. So I think what I would say that no matter what we do, we have a lot to do on diversity. I think there is no finishing line when I look up to diversity. And I don't know if you heard, but I like to think of diversity about cathedral thinking. So when you go to a cathedral, you enter to the cathedral, you say, oh, how did they do this? This is huge. This is amazing. But someone who did it did not live to see the results. So I think what we are doing here, it's a bit of cathedral thinking, something extraordinary to future generations, but we need to put brick by brick to have it. So I'm really glad. It was a pleasure. It is a pleasure to take part, to collaborate to this project, which I really think it's going to lead us to the next level on this cultural diversity.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Sylvia. I'll pass the floor to Neil Booker, also from one of our pilot companies. Thank you, Neil, for all your support since the beginning of the project. Neil is the head of inclusion and diversity at Yext. He's an experienced diversity, equity, and inclusion manager with 16 years of cross-industry expertise. His strong operational background includes spearheading system implementations and process enhancements. He's committed to fostering career development, enhancing diverse candidate sourcing and hiring practices through collaborations with corporate sponsors, universities, and minority youth. Neil, it has been a pleasure learning from you and seeing your commitment, your dedication, your passion for your work. So thank you so much, and we are very happy to be here with you today.
Thank you, Lillian, and hello, everyone. It's been a pleasure listening and learning from everyone. And Lillian, it really has been a pleasure connecting with you over the past few months. I can't believe it's been that long, so fast, right? And it's been such a learning opportunity to connect with you all, and I really look forward to see how this project continues to change and to morph. A little bit about me: I work for a technology company called Yext, based out of New York City here in the States, but we also have a global footprint, including in a Paris office, London. We're also in Hyderabad, India, Tokyo, Japan as well. But the primary almost 70% of our employees are based in New York City, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. But in that, we still want to make sure that we are taking a global approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But in that, I'll actually start to share my screen here, provide a little bit of an overview as to how we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, a little bit of the history as it relates to Yext and DEI. Historically, we started with a formal role of someone leading DEI, which would be myself, back in 2021. A lot of what led into it was a number of racial uprisings here in the States. As we know, from a historical perspective, America has not shied away from a lot of racial institutional challenges, to say the least, whether that's through governmental practices or corporate sectors. And one in particular was the impetus for a ton of change on the corporate side, which was the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police officers here in the United States. And as a result of that, a number of corporate institutions decided to shift gears and change a bit, which is an interesting part now here in 2024, is that a number of governmental institutions outside of the New York proximity, but a number of more conservative locales are very, very staunchly opposed to everything DEI. They hate the letters DEI, anything that's related to diversity, equity, or inclusion, they absolutely hate it. So when we talk about cultural diversity, cultural sensitivity, being inclusive to others, it's very much a challenge both in the corporate sector. Not here at Yext, thank goodness, but a lot of companies have totally done away with folks that represent what we all represent and what we all strive towards, which is an equitable chance for people to compete and have chances to work and to learn and things like that. So getting back to this point, in 2021, Yext built out a dedicated team to embed diversity and inclusion into all aspects of business policies and procedures. It's really important for those who don't necessarily identify with underrepresented groups, whether that's persons of color, someone of a particular age or disability, that people understand, even from a business perspective, how important it is. Something that I've connected with our bid desk team or business teams about is that a number of our clients, both existing and potential clients, particularly in EMEA, are requesting to have information around diversity, around labor practices. So not only is it a nice to have and something that's really important for people, it's also a business imperative moving forward. So it's cost us, a significant amount to make sure that we are doing the right thing. So our commitment is to make sure that every person that works for Yext has the chance to be seen, heard, and valued, that we create a more inclusive and diverse culture, and that when folks are working here, that they have the opportunity to strive and they don't have to worry about a number of the other issues that we've seen being pervasive throughout society. So how do we do that? We have a three-pillared approach. First is through fostering community. One of the first things that I tackle in jumping in here at Yext is to ensure that there's a ton of visibility to all of the work that's being done around diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And it goes down to employee engagement events, that goes down to our employee resource groups, or specifically just information around data, right? So I'll present every quarter to the entire company around data and representation. I know particularly here in the States, we are far more, reticent to share information around data and diversity, equity, and inclusion, what representation may look like. I know that due to GPDR concerns, particularly in Europe, it's a bit more challenging around that. But here in the States, we really take advantage of the fact that we can have folks identify themselves should they feel comfortable in doing so, to ensure that we are, improving what we see as something that's going to constantly be a challenge. A woman just said, it's a journey, right? Something that you have to constantly be considering, constantly be challenging. And that's what we want to make sure we hold ourselves account to. But the other part is business impact, which I just touched on, which is business indexes, survey, understanding what our clients want, understanding what our customers want, whether that's internal or external, and ensuring that we're leveraging that to ensure that we are taking the necessary steps. And then lastly is talent, right? So utilizing different recruitment initiatives, partnering with local community groups, whether that's women in tech, whether that's Black students in tech at local universities, here or abroad, right? To ensure that we are doing our due diligence and understanding what the market wants and how we can compete. Right. So comp is a lot of that stuff, but a number of other things that I want to try to make sure that I get across here is that, DEI can't just sit in one particular sector. It has to have tentacles throughout the business, right, in order for it to be successful. Whether that's connecting with leadership, folks that are individual contributors, partnering with employee resource groups, collaborating with our marketing teams. I want to make sure that we try to have a footprint, not only globally, but throughout all of the different facets of the business. So we talk about keeping ourselves accountable. We use various tools and resources to ensure that we're driving towards change, right? So something that I'm in the midst of completing right now is the Corporate Equality Index, which ensures that there's a level of equality and equity for folks that identify with the LGBTQ plus community, right? And it's a myriad of questions, and they want to see different types of data, and they want us to answer hundreds of questions around, policy and procedures and how we go about parental leave and the different benefits that we offer to folks of an underrepresented group. The same would be for Disability Equality Index. Obviously, there's a score that gets created as a result of that. The score is not the most important piece, right? The work providing teams is the most important piece. And then the other two things that we utilize, not limited to, but just some examples, are employee engagement reviews and survey scores, right? So some of the other things that I listed are more tactical and more quantitative. Some of the other components are more qualitative, right? So employee engagement scores through surveys. We utilize the commentary that folks say, how they feel about leadership, diversity, and equity, and things that we need to do to improve. And then lastly, again, I touched on it a few seconds ago, just around data. What does that look like? What does the representation look like? How we can improve in certain areas, whether that's through women in leadership, folks of color, what attrition looks like for people of particular underrepresented groups, and ways we can improve. And a few other things are just like awards that I just touched on. I can gloss over that. That's not the most important piece, but it's attractive to our teams, particularly using from a recruitment standpoint, for folks who may be interested in joining a company like Yext. I talked a little bit about our employee resource groups, which are voluntary-led initiatives, where folks that identify or may be allies of a particular group are significantly inclined to want to join, right? There are a ton of women here at Yext who talk about leadership, want to do more with leadership, want to hold our leadership team accountable, want to partner, want to learn, want to develop mentorship programs, and they've done all of that. And it's great to be able to have a level of commitment from folks that are volunteer. And here's a little bit of a highlight for our global footprint, right? So there are folks scattered throughout the globe, right? Some that work remotely where we don't necessarily have an office located, but still, just to kind of give you a sense of, the level of involvement from some of our teams that, again, we're talking about cultural involvement and folks that are interested in doing more and educating our teams. Just provides a little bit of an overview of that. And then lastly, just more on a light note, some of the things that our teams do, bringing our teams together, whether that's parents, whether that's Black History Month in the United Kingdom, whether that's Pride Month here in the States and both in Germany, and things around sustainability as well. So I could go on and on about the wonderful things that our teams do and the events that they put on to bring a level of cultural diversity in. But I think that's my time, Lillian, and I'll toss it back over to you, but I'm open to questions if should anyone have any.
Thank you, Neil. I think there will be a question, but we are leaving maybe the questions for the end, just to make sure that everyone can make its presentation. Thank you so much. Antoine Sautenay, merci beaucoup. Merci. Je sais qu'en plus, tu es en voyage là cette semaine. Antoine Sautenay est le directeur du développement durable du groupe Michelin, qui est également une des entreprises pilotes que nous avons eu la chance d'avoir à côté de nous au long de ce projet. Antoine est docteur en droit international, titulaire d'un master en économie de l'École normale supérieure de Rennes. Il est en charge de toute l'orchestration de la performance RSE du groupe Michelin dans ses dimensions sociales et environnementales. Au sein du groupe Michelin, Antoine a précédemment occupé divers postes de responsable des affaires publiques.
So his biography is available on the website as well.
En Asie,
He
notamment en
works
Thaïlande,
in Canada, in Asia, and in Europe.
Il a
And
également
there's
été chargé de
some of his
mission au
work
ministère des Affaires étrangères, comme ça qu'on s'est
portrayed
rencontrés.
and presented at the headquarters in
Chercheur associé au
Paris.
Centre Asie
Has
de
also
l'Institut
worked
français
as
des
an
relations
advisor at the
internationales.
French Ministry of Foreign
Antoine,
Affairs
tu
and as
connais
associate
depuis longtemps ma passion
research
pour les
at the
sujets
Asia
concrets
Center of French
aujourd'hui.
Institute for International
Donc, je te remercie
Relations. I
beaucoup
know
pour
you're
ta
very
confiance, pour ta
aware
recommandation
and
aussi
familiar
auprès
with the
de
kind of work
l'Université
that we do
Paris-Cité au
here.
moment où nous
Thank you
avons
for
déposé
your
notre candidature
collaboration
pour
when we
ce
became
financement qui
candidates
nous a permis de développer ce
to
projet
obtain
au long
this
de ces 11 mois.
funding during
Donc,
these
je te laisse
past
la
11
parole et je te
months.
remercie beaucoup
I
pour
will
ta
now
participation.
cede the
Merci
floor to
beaucoup,
you
Liliane.
and
Merci
thank
beaucoup,
you for
Antida.
your
Effectivement, j'ai la
participation.
chance de
Thank
vous connaître
you,
toutes les deux depuis
Liliane.
longtemps
Thank
et
you,
en particulier
Antida.
la chance de travailler
I'm
ensemble, Liliane,
glad
cette chance-là
and
aux affaires
happy
étrangères.
we had
Donc,
this
très heureux d'être avec
opportunity in
vous
the past
aujourd'hui.
to work
Et l'idée, c'est peut-être
together,
de vous
and
dire
I'm very
pourquoi
pleased
le
to
groupe
be
Michelin s'est
together
engagé
working with you
dans ce
today.
projet-là.
I'd like to
Qu'est-ce qui fait sa
share
singularité et en quoi cette
why
question de la diversité culturelle fait du
these
sens pour
questions of
la question
diversity
du
and
développement durable et la
cultural
durabilité des entreprises.
inclusion
Comment
are
ça s'intègre dans
important
la
for the
stratégie, finalement, durabilité des
sustainability of
entreprises.
a business.
Je me
Why
souviens
is
très
that
bien, Liliane,
important
parce
for
que
a
quand on avait évoqué le
business's
sujet quand on travaille aux affaires étrangères,
long-term
tu répétais
durability?
souvent et tu
I remember
tu
when we
mettais en
worked
évidence que la
together,
culture était
Liliane,
une
at
des
the Foreign
dimensions
Affairs, that
fondamentales du développement
cultural
durable dès le départ dans sa
diversity
conception, et
was
donc ça m'avait beaucoup marqué.
crucial
Et je
for
crois
the
que c'est d'autant
development
plus,
of any
c'était vrai dans le
project
passé,
from
c'est encore
its
plus vrai demain.
early
Et je
beginnings.
fais référence
And
là notamment
I always
à la théorie
remember
des
that,
donuts
and
et
it's
sur la nécessité dans le cadre de nos
more
stratégies de
true
développement
today
durable
than ever.
dans un groupe comme Michelin de
So
traiter à la fois
for the Michelin
comment
group, for
limiter les pressions
example,
sur les limites planétaires,
I'd
mais
like to
aussi
use
comment
the
faire en
donut
sorte
analogy.
d'assurer un
How
plancher
do
social,
we
notamment pour nos salariés,
ensure
mais
a
aussi pour les
social floor
innovateurs.
for the
Et de ce point de vue-là, la question
employees, but
culturelle
also for
est une
the
question clé qui fait
value
partie
chain?
fondamentalement du
And
projet social.
cultural
Et donc c'est pour cette
diversity
raison-là qu'on s'est engagé
is key
fondamentalement
in this context,
sur
and
ce
that's
projet diversité
why
culturelle. Et ce
we
peut-être pour trois
committed
raisons
to
qui
this
font une
cultural
singularité pour le groupe
diversity
Michelin. La
project.
première, elle est assez naturelle.
And
C'est que
so
le
the
groupe Michelin,
first
c'est aujourd'hui à peu près
way,
132 000 employés dans le monde,
the
et
Michelin
notamment
Group
121
is
sites de production dans 26 pays.
130,000
Et
people
donc, on
across
se
the
doit
world,
de refléter
across
cette diversité
21
de
countries, and
nationalités,
so
de
we
cultures, dans la
have
manière
to
dont nous gérons
honor
aussi le groupe dans son leadership, j'y reviendrai.
cultural
Ça, c'est
diversity
un
and
point
the way we
fondamental.
manage things,
Le
of
deuxième
course,
point, c'est
also.
que
This is
ça
one major
nous
pillar. The
permettra
second
d'enrichir
pillar
ce qui était
is
présenté
that
précédemment, c'est-à-dire notre
honoring
stratégie
these
diversité et
values will
inclusion.
allow us to
Et je vais y
honor
passer peu de temps, mais
diversity
simplement pour vous signaler qu'elle a été
and
initiée dès
inclusion.
2005, cette stratégie diversité et inclusion, et qu'aujourd'hui, on est en capacité de la
And
mesurer.
this has
Donc, on a une
started
ambition
in
en 2030 et on a
2005, and
conçu
we
un
are
indice
today able to
qu'on
measure
appelle IMDI
these
pour index de management
measures,
de la diversité,
EMTI,
et de l'inclusion, qui
Management
est composé de
Index for
12
Diversity and
sous-indicateurs et
Inclusion.
de 5 domaines.
This index
La mixité,
talks
l'identité,
about
la
identity,
plurinationalité du management, le
mixity,
handicap et
pluralism
l'égalité des
of
chances.
management,
Et ces 5 domaines sont structurants pour la
handicaps,
manière
and
dont on gère la diversité et l'inclusion au sein du
accessibility.
groupe.
And so
Et
we're
un point qui est
very
central, c'est qu'on le
aware
gère
that each
à
work
travers un réseau, donc avec des
together.
fonctions corporate dans le
We
département
have
développement durable,
corporate
mais nous
functions
avons
within
des
the
correspondants dans toutes
sustainability
les régions du monde
part of the
sur la
business,
question de la diversité et de
but we
l'inclusion.
also talk about
Et
these
peut-être pour vous donner un exemple
questions
très concret qui est
in
relié à
a
la
very
diversité culturelle, c'est
international
la question qu'on a
way.
abordée, nous,
One
dans
question
l'optique de la
that
plurinationalité
we
du management.
approach
En effet, compte tenu de cette empreinte industrielle
as
assez
far
importante
as
au niveau
the
mondial, hein, c'est à peu
pluralism
près
of
40% des effectifs
management.
en Europe, mais
In
30% en
Europe,
Amérique du Nord et le reste dans d'autres
40,
régions. Donc, c'est vraiment une empreinte très,
40%,
très fragmentée sur
30%
le
in
plan mondial.
Europe, but
On a
and
conçu cet
elsewhere
index
the
et cet
remainder
indicateur
is very fragmented worldwide.
plurinationalité du management pour faire en sorte que
So
toutes les
the
nationalités, donc toutes les cultures,
plurinationality of
puissent être
management,
représentées
the
dans des
multiplicity
fonctions
of the
centrales,
nationalities to
soit
which
dans les
management
régions,
members
soit au
belong,
niveau du siège,
is important
avec
to
une ambition qui
see
est assez forte, qui
on
est en 2030,
councils at
nous
higher
sommes donnés,
levels,
nous sommes
and
engagés à ce
we
que
have
plus de
committed
la moitié des
to see
représentants
in
du haut management du
2030
groupe, donc des 100
that more
leaders
than
du groupe Michelin,
50%
soient de
of
nationalité autre que française.
higher management
Donc c'est quand même un engagement fort qui
at
permet
Michelin
d'appuyer, de
Group are
structurer la manière
other
dont
than
on gère la
French. So
question
that's the goal.
de la diversité et de
So
l'inclusion
this is how
pour le
we
groupe.
want to
Et puis
tackle
bien
the
sûr, on a
diversity and
beaucoup, au-delà des
inclusion piece
indicateurs
at
et
the
de la mesure
higher
de la performance,
management
on a beaucoup
level.
d'événements qui ont
As
été
far
décrits. Donc,
as
comme beaucoup d'entreprises,
performance
nous
and
avons beaucoup
indicators,
d'événements en
we
particulier,
have a
je
lot
dirais,
of
internes et
events
externes. Et si on regarde les géographies, principalement
internally,
en Europe du Nord,
externally, and when we
en
look
Amérique du Nord
at
et en
what's
Amérique
going
du
on
Sud,
in
il y a quand même
South
relativement
America,
moins
North
d'initiatives, notamment en
America,
Asie. Je pense qu'il faut être en capacité de le reconnaître. Donc, il y a une
and
maturité qui est quand même assez différenciée
there's
selon
a
les
maturity
régions
that's
du monde.
different from what we see in
Et
Asia.
notamment l'Amérique du Nord qui est très avancée, qui a 11
North
réseaux locaux
America has
sur la diversité et
11
l'inclusion, notamment sur les questions de genre.
regions
On
on
n'a pas du tout les mêmes maturités. C'est vraiment une
themes
question
of
de profondeur historique et culturelle qui fait la
gender,
différence. Et donc, on
of
accorde beaucoup
cultural
d'importance au sein du groupe parce
diversity.
que ces questions de diversité et inclusion soient
These
d'abord et avant tout traitées au niveau
questions
local.
of
Le groupe est là pour fixer un
D&I
cadre, mais les initiatives
are
elles sont
there
d'abord et avant tout
to
locales.
enable
Et
a
donc, il y a
frame,
peut-être une
but
initiative que je voulais mentionner qui est
there's
assez
more to do
intéressante
than
parce
just
que
establish the
assez
frame.
nouvelle.
There's one
On a mis en
interesting
place l'an dernier,
initiative
donc c'est
that
nos
I'd like
équipes
to
en
speak
Afrique de
about.
l'Est qui l'ont
In
mise en place.
East
On a
Africa
mis en place
last
un
year,
festival de la
we
diversité culturelle
implemented
pour l'Afrique et le
a
Moyen-Orient qui réunit plus de 20
cultural
pays
diversity
avec beaucoup de représentants
festival
qui étaient donc
with the Middle East as well,
pendant
and
2
many
jours une mise en
groups were
valeur de cette
represented to
diversité culturelle,
highlight this
de la
cultural
cuisine,
diversity, the
de mode d'habillement, de mode de vie. Donc, c'était vraiment une manière de
foods,
mettre en valeur cette diversité culturelle.
lifestyle,
Donc, il y a aussi des initiatives très concrètes
dressing,
qui sont
and it
relatives
was
à la
very
diversité culturelle.
interesting because we could see
Et
very
puis peut-être un dernier point
specifically
qui me semble important
variations
parce que dans le
across
projet, il y a
the
tout un volet
different
reporting.
groups.
Je crois que c'est important de
There's
souligner
another
que,
pillar
en
that
tendance en tout cas,
is
ce
an
sujet-là va
aspect
prendre
that's
une place de plus
the
en plus importante,
reporting.
notamment au
It's
travers de
more
la
and more
CSRD,
something
donc la
we
Corporate
answer
Sustainable
to,
Reporting Directive, et notamment tout ce qui concerne les communautés affectées. Des
and
groupes comme Michelin, mais beaucoup d'autres également,
CRSD
auront vocation à
reporting
travailler ce qu'on appelle le S3, donc dans le reporting social.
often
Vous avez
have
toute
to
une dimension
report
sociale.
with the
Et la notion
S3
des
social
communautés affectées va
reporting.
prendre
So
une place de
the
plus en plus importante dans
communities
les années à venir, et
affected
donc
are
tout ce qui
going
permet de
to
mieux
take
comprendre la diversité
increasingly
culturelle, de mieux
larger
construire des argumentaires
spaces,
autour
and
de
it's
ce qu'apporte
important
la
to know
diversité
how to
culturelle à la
build
stratégie de
arguments.
durabilité d'entreprise,
How
sont
does
des
having
éléments qui vont
cultural
structurer
diversity
notre
enable
approche à long
the
terme
company to move
sur la manière dont
forward
nous
with more
appréhendons les
strength?
communautés locales, notamment
And
sur
how
l'ensemble de la
do
chaîne de
we
valeur, parce que tout ce qui relève de la matérialité d'impact nous
take that
recentre au
into
fond sur
the
la chaîne de valeur et la
chain
manière
of
dont on doit,
value
là c'est
of
plutôt le volet
the
externe de la diversité et
business,
l'inclusion, mais comment on doit
which ties into the
comprendre
external work
notamment les communautés
of what the
autochtones
company is
dans un
doing.
certain nombre de
For
pays
instance,
d'implantation
how does
de
it
notre chaîne de valeur.
affect
Donc ça, c'est un sujet
indigenous
en devenir
communities in
et
all
je
the
suis assez
countries where
convaincu
we
que ce projet
do
va nous aider à mieux
business?
comprendre
So I'm
ces thématiques.
convinced that this project will
Voilà en
help
quelques
us
mots.
understand
Merci infiniment,
all
Antoine.
these
Merci vraiment.
topics.
Je voudrais
Thank you
passer la
very
parole
much, Antoine. I'd like to
deux
now
personnes que j'ai eu le
give the
plaisir de
floor over
rencontrer à
to two
Buenos
people
Aires
that I
dans le
was
cadre d'une
delighted
réunion
to
UNESCO
meet
en
in
novembre.
Buenos Aires in the context
Je
of
ne
work
vois
done
pas.
at
Est-ce que
UNESCO.
Magdalena... Donc, bon, je vais introduire. Donc, nous avons Julieta
We have
Sterling, qui
Julieta
est experte en
with
gestion de projet.
us. She's an expert
Merci de nous
in
avoir rejoints. Je
project
pense que Magdalena a
management.
eu
I think Magdalena had some issues to connect with us. Julieta is an expert in end-to-end project management with a degree in political science from UBA and in charge in 2021 and 23 of all public funding programs of the Ministry of Culture of the city of Buenos Aires, as well as the public-private participation scheme Mecenazgo. After many years working in the private consulting field, she focused on public cultural management, first in the parliamentary field, then in the national executive branch, and for the last years in the city of Buenos Aires. She has extensive experience in project formulation and management in all its phases. And she, I think, is accompanied by Magdalena Suarez, consultant lawyer, also with a master's in international cultural management and social innovation from the University of Complutense of Madrid. She currently serves as director of the World Cities Culture Forum LATAM and has over a decade of experience in public policy implementation, working in and with local and federal governments, international organizations, and philanthropic organizations. Let's hope she can connect with us later if her connection allows. So thank you very much, Julieta, for connecting with us. I've always learned a lot from you. I'm honored to have you here with us.
Bien, tal como bien lo explicó Lilian y
The way Lilian explained it, I'm super grateful to be here. It's a very important topic we're discussing. Magdalena and I have worked on the cultural plan of the city of Buenos Aires, and there were elections and since last year, and the ministry for which we work had a lot of things to teach us. We learned a lot. There were lots of revolutionary laws that came to pass. So the law of Mecenazgo is one of them. We think that our line of work focusing on culture has contributed to this. The fact that culture is a developmental engine, that culture is something that can help economic development, that culture in a country like ours, and we have economic crises on a recurring basis. So if you think in your countries it's difficult, imagine how it is in Latin America. We want to make sure that the work we do is put in the context of this kind of situation, the way we experience things in Argentina. Is Magdalena here with us? Yes, she is. She could join. Do you want to continue, Magdalena?
Vamos hablando juntas, si te parece bien. Dale, espera. Vamos a ir para atrás. Te tengo que ir para atrás. Perfecto.
Alors, je recule, je vais derrière, je vais reculer un peu. I'm sorry, I'm speaking French. So we're going back a bit, a few slides back. We're going back.
Como decía Julieta,
The way Julieta was saying, this was a public system. The city was funded to approve the biggest, largest projects in the city of Buenos Aires. And this belonged to the Mecenazgo.
La puesta en valor de infraestructura, las giras internacionales.
Projects, you had international groups, international aid, the performance field, festivals, any project that would take place in Buenos Aires would go through our system. So we were very, very honored by this. the system of ours being like a hub. Just a second, I want to make sure I don't speak too fast. So we're going to go to the next slide. This is a very relevant system.
Como decía, más importante de financiamiento que tiene la
It's
ciudad,
the
que han
most
permitido,
funded by the city
promover
in
proyectos de
terms
todas las
of
disciplinas, tanto de personas físicas como
percentage.
de personas jurídicas,
There
y
were
de
legal
toda índole, ¿no?
persons,
Proyectos de
physical
infraestructura,
persons
proyectos
involved,
audiovisuales, proyectos
projects
con
with
impacto
infrastructures,
territorial,
audiovisual,
etcétera. Lo que hacemos, Juli, lo más
extraterritorial.
relevante de este sistema
What was
es que
most
el
relevant
sistema
about
es
the
una
system
plataforma,
is that
digamos,
it's a
en la que
it's like a
la inversión
platform
pública lo que hace es apalancar
that
inversión
the
privada en la
public
cultura.
had
Como decía Julieta,
public
lo que nosotros nos
funding
propusimos
and the
fue
public
poner de
itself
moda la
had
inversión en cultura por parte del sector
contributed
privado, haciendo un
to,
esfuerzo muy
partially
proactivo
funded
a
by
través de
the
distintas
private
herramientas
sector,
para unir estos dos mundos,
to
¿no? Y acercar
unite
al
the
mundo
two
empresarial el valor y el
worlds,
atractivo que
the
tiene el
business
mundo
world
cultural. Y a su
and
vez
the
formar al
cultural
mundo
world
cultural
to
para
create
que
one
sepa
fused
presentarse y sepa,
world to
digamos, cómo
honor these
vincularse con el mundo empresarial,
values.
¿sí?
How do we present ourselves
Entonces,
in the
lo
business
importante acá
field?
es que la
What's
inversión
important
privada,
here is that the
digamos,
private
cuenta,
investors
digamos, con, o sea, perdón, la
sometimes
inversión pública
relies
lo que hace
on
justamente es
public funding,
impulsar la inversión privada, que es el objetivo de mecenazgo.
and the idea is to
Unir a estos dos mundos. Perfecto,
trigger
pasemos, Juli.
more private
Pasemos
funding.
también, creo que ya podemos ir directo a qué es lo que hicimos en estos años.
What have we
Lo más
done
relevante
on
que
the
nosotros
last few
hicimos fue
years? Is
fomentar
that
la
something I'd
inversión
like to
privada,
focus on now?
que
We've
no solo
been
se
able
fomenta
to
hacemos, Juli, con la subvención pública que da, es decir,
engender
nosotros
more
lo que se logra con
more
este sistema
private
es que el
funding,
aporte que realiza el sector privado
and
puede
what the private
deducirlo
sector has allowed us to
parcialmente de los
do
impuestos que se le den al
partially
gobierno
is
de la
that
ciudad. ¿Sí?
when
Es un
you pay
adelanto
your
esos
taxes to
impuestos.
the city,
Entonces
then some of
existe,
those
por un lado,
funds
un
we were
esfuerzo
asking for in order
presupuestario
to
por
fund our
parte del
projects.
Estado, pero
So
solo eso no es
this was a little
suficiente
bit
para poner de moda la inversión en
assuming
cultura
that
y lograr unir
we
a
could
proyectos con empresas.
work on these
No solamente hay que hacer un
projects,
esfuerzo
not
presupuestario,
only
sino que hay que hacer
with
un
a
esfuerzo
funding
muchísimo más
effort,
grande
but
que
the most
se plasma
important
en
part
estas
of the
herramientas que nosotros vamos a
part of the
contar.
work
Por
was
un lado,
to
tiene que ver con
have more
visibilizar
visibility,
los proyectos
was
culturales
for
y
people to
acercarlos
understand
con
what we were
información
doing and
clara
to
para el
connect
sector
it with
empresarial. Para eso nosotros creamos una
information
plataforma
in the
online
business
que
world.
permite hacer
So
una
we
búsqueda
created
con distintos
an online
patrones para que
platform
las
that would
empresas
allow
puedan
you to
encontrar
do a
rápidamente,
search so that
digamos,
people could easily
proyectos que
find
se alineen con sus intereses, ya sean por
projects lining up
disciplina, ya
with
sea
their
por
interests,
territorio,
their
ya sea por
fields,
audiencia a la que
whether
le hablan. Entonces, una
it's a
plataforma
theme they're
online
looking
en donde la
for. So it's
información
one
puede
online
ser filtrada
platform
rápidamente y las
where you
empresas
can
pueden
quickly
encontrar de
filter
manera
this kind of
fácil qué
information.
tipo de proyectos se alinean a sus
What type
intereses.
of
Por otro
project
lado,
is
la ley originalmente
available that
tenía
exists?
doble
So that's
posibilidad,
one
o sea,
side.
la posibilidad de que se relacione la
And
marca de la empresa con el
also
proyecto
we
cultural,
wanted
y en
that
ese caso la exención era
the business
de un 80%,
trademark
por ejemplo,
be
y
connected to the
digamos, una
values,
exención
the
mayor
cultural
del 100%
aspect
si
of
existía
what
una
we knew
asociación entre
in
marca
our
de la
organization.
empresa y el proyecto.
So
Esto nosotros lo
whether
eliminamos porque entendimos que no se puede
this was possible
incentivar la inversión privada en cultura si no existe una asociación de marcas
is something we
con proyecto
studied.
cultural.
It
Porque
wasn't
para
it
que el
wasn't
sector
easy to
privado
have a
invierta en
brand
cultura,
name
lo tiene que
connected to
entender como un
culture.
activo deseable.
There has to
Y es un
be
activo deseable en tanto y en cuanto puede
something
vincularse a
more
ese
that
proyecto
we
y
didn't see
vincularse a los
existed.
valores, atributos o
We
públicos a los
we
que ese
wanted the
proyecto demanda.
values
Y en ese sentido y en ese momento el proyecto se vuelve un
that
activo
we are
deseable para la
putting
empresa.
forward to
Entonces,
remain
otra de las cosas que nosotros
cultural,
hicimos fue
artistic.
este
So
cambio de
this
benefactor a
way of putting a
patrocinador,
brand name was not
estableciendo sobre
something
la
we
figura del
could
patrocinador,
support.
es decir,
And
estableciendo
then we
la obligatoriedad de que la marca
decided that
de la empresa se asocia al proyecto. Por
if a
supuesto que es un
brand
acuerdo entre
name
privados, el Estado no interviene en
associates
ese acuerdo, solamente la ley
themselves with the
establece
project,
que esa
the
asociación va a
law
existir y que tiene que
requires that
existir un
this
contrato entre las partes que
association
establezca cómo
will
se va a hacer.
exist. So
Pero
this has to be
fundamental la asociación de
publicized.
marca para que el sector
And if
privado
we associate
vislumbre como un
different
activo
brands,
al proyecto cultural.
we must disclose
Sí,
this.
ahí,
Vale, te quiero sumar algo que me parece importante, que es
históricamente la ley
And
de
we
mecenazgo
have
cuenta ya
to
con 15
say
años en la ciudad de Buenos
the
Aires.
law has
Para cuando
existed
nosotros
for
llegamos,
15
contaba con
years
10 años. Cuando
in
nosotros llegamos,
Buenos
digamos,
Aires.
al
When
ministerio
we
y empezamos a
arrived,
trabajarlo.
this
En esos
it
10
had
años,
existed for
esta
10
ley
years.
siempre era vista por el sector privado
So the
como
private sector
con la
always
idea
saw
de
this
gasto,
law
¿no? Es plata que es
like
gasto,
this
que
is
en la
a
ecuación
cost.
económica es gasto,
It's a
de
cost,
la cual el área que se
and
ocupa de
the field
otorgar o
that
derivar
takes
aportes es
care
el
of
área
all of
de
this,
responsabilidad social, o el
there's
área
a
que se
social
ocupa, por así
responsibility
decirlo,
in
de las
charge of this.
donaciones,
There's
de hacer cosas
donations,
para mejorar la imagen de una empresa,
so
etcétera, etcétera. Nosotros lo que
visibility
hicimos fue
improvements.
justamente esto que dice
This is what
Magdalena,
we were
que es
doing.
pasarlo y
Magdalena
tratar
was
de
just
venderlo
saying
dentro
that
de las
we wanted to
empresas en el
sell
área de
it
marketing
within
para que pasara de
businesses
ser un gasto en la ecuación
and
económica y fuera una
in
inversión.
the
Muchas
economic equation
empresas
for
que
people to
invierten
stop seeing
dinero
it as a
en
cost but start seeing it as an
sponsoreo, dinero
investment.
en
We had to do a lot of
publicidad,
work,
en marketing, en campañas, no sabían que de
publicity,
repente podían
marketing,
invertir y
campaigns.
poner,
People
vamos a
didn't
poner un
realize
ejemplo,
that you
un
can invest.
un trapero conocido ahora que
For
está de moda el tema,
example,
o un
put
cantante muy conocido, o un
a
artista
very
plástico muy
well-known
conocido que tuviera obra y
singer,
que mucha
a
gente la fuera a
rapper,
ver,
or
que podía
somebody very
poner su
famous that
marca en
someone
toda la
knew,
comunicación de su
an
proyecto,
artist.
en su
No,
ropa,
they didn't
en sus
realize that
discos, y
you
de
could
repente pasó a
match
ser un activo, como dice Magdalena, e incluso capaz mucho
clothing,
más
a
barato que
clothing
lo que ellos
line
ponían
with this
en
person.
marketing y en sponsorear a esos
This
artistas.
is
Entonces,
something related to
también es muy
marketing, and
importante esto que
people
dice
weren't
Magdalena, la primera
aware
herramienta que
that,
tiene
oh
que ver
yeah,
con
this
el
is how we do
catálogo,
things. This is
porque
how
nosotros
we
pudimos curar con este
publicly
catálogo y las
start
propias
matching
empresas con sus departamentos de
culture with
marketing pudieron
other
curar el
business
catálogo
ventures.
para
So
encontrar esas
it's
joyitas que eran de
important to
repente los
say that
artistas más
first,
populares,
the
¿no?
most popular artists,
Y la
most
cultura más
well-known
popular que
artists,
llegaba
the
a
most
mucha más
well-known
gente, capaz,
culture
que la que está llegando solamente si yo pienso esto como,
started
bueno, una
reaching
donación
people
para alguien
in
que
ways that
conozco, para alguien que me,
until
me
then
viene a
had
pedir o a
not
rogar
been
plata.
understood.
Esta
It
idea,
was
justamente de hecho
not
nosotros pensamos hasta en cambiarle
connected
el nombre
in
de la
people's
ley,
minds
porque
until
mecenazgo nos
we
sonaba
started this
justamente
work.
esto, ¿no? Bueno, yo soy mecenas de
Precisely,
alguien porque le
oh
quiero esa
well,
idea
I'm
histórica, ¿no? De lo que es
supporting
el
this
mecenazgo. Bueno, yo claramente
this
claro
this
de
work or this business because I associate with the values.
digamos, un acuerdo entre partes que beneficia a ambas partes, en la que la cultura es un
The
activo, es un
culture
valor
is an
que las
active, it's a
empresas
value,
tienen que
it's
valorar
an
como tal,
asset.
¿no? No es
And
caridad,
this is
eso, es
how
una
we
alianza
want people to
estratégica.
see it. It's
Perdón,
not
exactamente.
charity you're
Pregunta,
doing,
Magdalena,
it's
si
an
no
asset.
tendremos intérpretes en un minuto. Entonces, no sé si quieren hacer en
Sí,
inglés,
ya nos
podemos tener
apuramos.
una intérprete. Podemos tener una intérprete, creo, pero no
Ah,
las dos. Entonces, no
está
en
bien.
las dos
Terminamos.
lenguas.
So we're just
Nos
letting the
apuramos,
public
nosotros
know
terminamos
that
rápidamente.
we're over
Listo.
time and one of the
Dos cosas más que
interpreter
hicimos,
is
y con eso creo que
leaving,
ya
and
podemos
so the
cerrar, es
translation will
no
be
solo hicimos la
available in
plataforma
English
y
only, but not in
hicimos,
French. So we'll
digamos,
continue
la
with the
red
English
asociar, sino que
translation.
hicimos
So we want
una,
to make sure
digamos,
that we
una
continue
vinculación entre empresas y proyectos,
associating
una tarea de
in people's
inteligencia
minds
comercial, entender qué estaban buscando
commercially
las empresas y acercarle
for
proyectos acorde a
people
esos intereses, ad hoc,
to
hecho customizado a uno a uno. Entonces, eso también súper importante, acercarles ad hoc a las empresas más grandes proyectos que
ad
sabíamos que les
hoc
podían interesar,
to make
y también les
sure
dimos visibilidad y reconocimiento público con
that
un
visibility
premio que
and
se
public
dio
recognition was
desde el
awarded
gobierno
to
de la ciudad
people
para premiar y
that
visibilizar a
were
las empresas que más invierten en
benefiting
cultura en la ciudad.
for that we were
Dicho esto,
from this work that
lo que
we're
queda es
doing.
que
This
hicimos más
said,
fácil
we wanted
participar del
to
sistema en términos
make
de que todo
sure
sea online, de que los tiempos
that
sean más ágiles, de que
everything
el
was
proceso sea
online,
fácil,
that
de
the
que no sea
process was
discrecional, de que sea transparente, para que
user
no sea un
friendly,
problema para las
transparent,
empresas participar.
and
Y
so
creo que con
that
eso podríamos cerrar porque lo
we
más
could
relevante
assess
fue lo que acabamos de contar.
the
La plataforma,
creative
la
value of
visibilización de la
the
marca, inteligencia
cultural
comercial y el premio.
values that we
Sí,
were
y que
putting
además,
forward.
esto que dijo Magdalena, que fuera
What
fácil, que
Magdalena
fuera
said,
fácil poner la
this was
plata,
not
invertir la
easy.
plata.
Once
Por
the
eso
money
agilizamos
was
la herramienta. La herramienta
in-
estaba vetusta, estaba vieja, era muy difícil, eran
invested,
formularios muy complejos que los tenían que hacer solo los
was
contadores
old.
de la
It was
empresa.
very
Entonces
difficult.
nosotros
The forms
decidimos
were
hacer una
old.
herramienta.
Only
Invertimos
the
plata en un
accountants
sistema
knew how
mejor,
to
pero
access this
decidimos hacer una herramienta
information.
que fuera fácil
We
y
invested
ágil para
money
que
in a
cualquier
better
persona de la empresa
system,
pudiera
but
meterse o del
we
departamento de
wanted
marketing
a tool that was user-friendly and that anyone from the business or outside could access this information. They wanted to know where the money was going. We did everything over as far as making the tool more user-friendly. And if anybody has doubts and want to know more clearly what we did, you can write to us if Liliane has your information. We are happy for her to share our emails and phone numbers with you if you want to reach out to us. If anybody wants us to share how we did things, we are very, very glad to share this information with you.
Thank you, Liliane, for the invitation.
Thank you. So if any of you need
Thank you,
contact any
Liliane,
of
for this
our
invitation.
experts that participated and shared with us their experience, their expertise, please feel free just to send us an email. I think you all have our Gmail for the project. So feel free to send us an email and we'll be happy to put you in contact with any of the panelists. I'm sorry we didn't have the time to continue. Thank you so much to our interpreters also. I know they have another job just after that one, so they need to run. So thank you so much, Valérie and Nadine. And thank you to all of you who were here with us. Antida, si tu veux clôturer officiellement.
Quelques mots de conclusion. Merci à tous nos intervenants.
A few words to conclude today's talk. Thank you for all the speakers, to all the organizations present,
de conclusion de ce beau projet CSSC.
for this beautiful CSSC project.
Vous avez pu voir en fait de
My apology as interpreter for the Spanish. It was originally supposed to be English-French only. But I hope, yeah, you benefited from today's presentation.
Une grande rencontre collective.
It was a collective meeting we had.
Un magnifique projet.
This is a beautiful project, and this project has as a purpose mainly to understand what we are, what each of us is within our field, how we compare to others, understand what surrounds other businesses, others in our field, and to better understand the consumers, to better reflect the socioeconomic world within which we work and grow. And when we understand others better, we learn from others. The purpose of this project is to improve visibility, better practices, more virtuous initiatives for culture. We want to learn how we can work together to favor diversity and inclusion, cultural diversity and inclusion. We spoke of sustainability, of durability, social peace. These may be attained through culture. These may be inaccessible. It's not a cathedral only, the way we talked about the webinar. But step by step, brick by brick, we may
grands objectifs que sont à la fois la paix et le développement durable. Donc, toutes ces initiatives
durable, sustainable development,
et qui vont être valorisées par notre projet.
And this is what the project
petits pas qui vont nous permettre de construire finalement
is seeking to do, to accomplish.
Plus solidaire et plus
we want a
apaisée.
more
En tous les cas, c'est notre objectif.
more solidarity in our society. We hope to accomplish this, and so we want to hopefully get more funding to continue this kind of project, benefiting culture, putting public actors and businesses forward in the cultural field.
Pour votre contribution, pour votre
Thank you
assistance,
all.
pour avoir été présent ce
your
soir. Encore
presence,
désolée
your
d'avoir un peu dépassé le
contributions.
temps
We
que nous
apologize
avions
having
fixé.
gone
Et
over
puis, j'en
time
profite
a
aussi
bit,
pour remercier
and
chaleureusement
I'd like
mon
to
amie
also
de si longtemps, Liliane, avec
warmly
laquelle j'ai tant
thank
de plaisir à
my
travailler.
friend
Allez, au revoir à
Liliane,
tous
with
et
whom
à
I've
bientôt.
always
Merci
enjoyed
beaucoup.
working. Thank you all very much.